This meeting is called to order. This special meeting, budget hearing of the Township Council is called to order. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1995, be advised that adequate notice of this reorganization meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, was made by the posting on the bulletin board at the municipal complex and transmitted to the officially designated newspapers. A list of dates annually indicating that this special meeting, budget hearing, would take place at the Franklin Township Municipal Complex at 7 p.m. on Monday, February 12th, 2018. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Chase. Here. Councilwoman Francois. Councilman Gattari.
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
Here.
Councilman Onijaka.
Here.
Councilman Passad. Deputy Mayor Chanel Robinson.
Here.
Councilman Vassanella.
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Thank you. We are now on item number 4, public discussion. This will, because this is a special meeting, we will be limited to 1/2 hour and 2 minutes per speaker. Do I have a motion to open the public portion?
Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, seeing no discussion on opening. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We are now open to public discussion.
Seeing that no one come forward, I move that we close the public portion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. For the benefit of our viewers, I see only staff members here and the press, so that's why no one came up. We are now on to the main item of the day, departmental budget presentations. Mr. Vornlocker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. In your budget books, I believe that you all have an agenda for tonight's meeting that starts off with construction code. So I may stray a little bit to accommodate some employees who are under the weather. So if you'll just bear with me on the actual agenda, we will cover all the items listed on the agenda. They just might be slightly out of order. The first budget that we're going to speak about tonight is the Uniform Construction Code budget. You'll see you all have the tabs. If you can go to Uniform Construction Code. I'm going to kind of segue into some things here as we go through these budgets. The first issue with the Uniform Construction Code budget that I wish to speak about is there is a request for additional personnel in this budget year for the Uniform Construction Code office. There's a request for an additional fire subcode inspector and also a request for a permit expediter. Both of them are a response to, yes?
I'm sorry, sir. Which tab is it?
Uniform Construction Code.
Oh, tiny print.
That was my problem. I was over here saying, I can't read it. I can't read it. I put my reading glasses on. It's the joy of getting older. Councilman Galtieri, you'll learn that someday. You brought that up several meetings ago.
You understand I'm old.
Me too, and that's why it took me just as long to find it. I just started earlier than you. And it's so heartening to see all of the glasses come on.
The public will be pleased
Except
to know,
for Councilman Chase.
the public will be pleased to know the budget is very small.
The budget is very small. The numbers might be large, but the print is small. So back to my just introduction here. There is a request for 2 additional personnel in the Uniform Construction Code office this year. One is a fire subcode inspector, and one is a permit expediter. We currently have a fire subcode official, but no fire subcode inspectors. What we've found is that this has caused a delay in either plan review or inspections, because if you have the same person doing both, and unfortunately, the plan review for fire subcode is the last review done, so everyone's done with a plan submitted for construction, and the last one to do it is fire subcode, and for reasons, it's the last to be done. And then if he's the only one doing inspections on the larger projects, we have the problem, and we used to have a fire inspector, and we're looking to bring one back again. We feel that that will make us much more efficient as it relates to all of our economic development initiatives and as they relate to the construction office. The second is a permit expediter position, and I'm going to let Mr. Lupo, the construction official, explain to you the program that he proposes that permit expediter will fill that will, in my opinion, make us much more efficient in the construction office. So, Mr. Lupo.
What we're looking to do this year is initiate a point of service permitting, which would mean that if you came in to pick up permits, all minor work permits could be issued the moment you come in to pick them up, as opposed to the week to 10 days we're currently taking on all of our permits. It would alleviate the problem of our staff having to input all this information, pass it to our subcode officials, have it go back through them. I do 2 reviews on that. Well, now I only have to do 1, and these people can walk out with their permits as opposed to having to wait for them the week to 10 days. That would also allow my subcode officials to concentrate and put more of their time into the larger projects that we currently have, because they wouldn't be touching any of these anymore. They would be done just through me.
So one of the things, and Mr. Lupo, about how many permits did we process in 2017? Do you know the number?
In 2017, we did approximately 4,700 permits, 30% of which were minor work type permits that could be handled on this point of service.
So some could say, well, we have personnel doing these jobs. This permit expediter is filling not a void, but really an increase in staff. That's one of the parts that makes this where our office will be much more efficient. I think in this particular case, having someone dedicated to this and not trying to share it across several different employees as their responsibilities means that you have someone there at the counter ready and waiting to process these applications. And 30% of, nearly 5,000, that's a 1,500 permit process, processing 1,500 permits where people won't have to come back, or contractors won't have to come back to pick them up days later after review. They can, these can be reviewed on the spot and put them through into the permits into their hands right away. I think that's really a step in the right direction as far as the efficiencies in the construction office. So I supported that request. I know it was presented as a plan to the Economic Development Committee, and I think that it was met favorably there. And I think that this is something that I would strongly urge council to consider moving forward with.
And moving forward with it, we also had proposed to put in 2 kiosks that would allow people to come in. We're setting up computer stations, so when they leave, they actually will have their password set up so they can go on to our website, our portal site, and get the information that they need to be able to call in for inspection and so forth and so on. So we'll set up something where they'll fill out their permits right in front of our permit expediter.
So one of the things that we've looked at as far as the construction office is concerned, and that's the kiosks that Vince is talking about, is that there's no good place for someone on Vince's staff to sit down with an applicant and go over just what we just talked about, whether it be those simple plans or the more complex ones that, sometimes it's not just go into the conference room, but this will actually physically construct, and that's in the capital budget that we'll talk about in a couple minutes, physically construct a work area that's kind of one-on-one FaceTime. You sit down at the desk with someone and you get the work done. There'll be computer monitors there so that they can get this permit application entered into the system, and they get on their way. And so there's already an area that we've identified that we can convert the current counter space into that work area and allow for someone to sit down with an applicant, one of our staff members sit down with an applicant. So that's a capital project, which I believe is $15,000, Vince. I don't have it.
I believe it was, yes.
Yeah, so we'll talk about capital, but it's actually good. Vince doesn't have to be here. Vince's office has a couple capital projects. We'll talk about them now at a higher level, and when we actually do the capital budget a little later on tonight, we can talk a little bit more about them. But that is one of the capital projects. So, are there any questions on the staff proposals? Councilman Chase?
I think this is a very good idea. The one point I had when I heard about it, Mr. Lupo, you finally sign off all of these permits under all of your qualifications, right?
Yes, sir.
So the smooth working then depends on your being available when the expediter comes in with the permit.
The permit expeditors on my behalf, and I'm allowed to assign people, as long as they're being trained by me, to be able to sign these things off and use my name. They're also using my license. So
Okay.
I am watching them very closely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I had, Councilman, you had raised that question with me, and I had spoken with the same concerns to Vince. So that's the answer, is that when they work under his license, they're permitted to affix his signature to the forms, so that they can, if he's not there.
Rubber stamp.
Exactly, it's
Yeah.
a stamp, exactly.
Yeah. It's just a matter of me checking over them and making sure that everything's being done right. So I'm going to be closely overseeing what's going on, considering it's my license. But
Yeah,
we
I
can
just
work
don't
it down.
want somebody waiting an hour because you're busy with something else.
No, the other problem we would have had with that, and we wanted to make sure we covered it, was I'll be out on vacations or be someplace else or be
Yeah.
at meetings. I don't want the process to stop as a result of my not being there every minute, so it can be covered. We're also going to be, while Bob mentioned that we want to have one person that specifically does that, we're going to be cross-training other people. I can't have this process stop. You know, the cart doesn't stop when we don't have the horse there.
Yeah,
So we have to keep moving.
So,
very good. Good
Anyone else?
idea.
okay, good. So, any other questions
No,
on?
I just wanted to make a comment. This concept was well received in our Economic Development Committee. And we thought it would have a great impact on customer satisfaction.
And I agree with that. So that's, I think this, and credit where credit is due. This was not the creation of anyone other than Vince Lupo. It was his idea, and he came up with a plan on how we could make ourselves much more efficient and more customer friendly.
So I have a similar setup at where I work. I have a nurse practitioner who sometimes sees patients, and then I review her notes. And occasionally, there's things I disagree with, and then I make a phone call to the patient and correct it. Is that basically?
I was laughing myself just now because I said of all the people that would understand this, you would, because I know you guys have that set up with
Yep.
the nurse practitioners, yeah.
So that's what you would do?
Yes, same thing.
Okay. Then I'm going to just jump to Mr. Lupo's OE budget, which is just under that same tab. And it's flat from last year. There's no change. The proposed budget is equal to the proposed budget from 2017. Some of the numbers for the annual actual would be adjusted now. I don't believe that these were as of like today. Those are older. It doesn't have the date on this one in particular, Kathy. That's the only reason why I ask. Oh, okay. So that's a current number on the annual actuals. The biggest thing that's budgeted, and it's a kind of a thorn in my side, and we can talk about it when we talk about when the IT director is here, and that's the document imaging, which we're still working towards getting that program. No, I know you're here. I'm just saying when we talk about IT, we'll talk about that. But that's a large portion of this OE budget for
What line number is
construction.
that?
The I'm sorry, hold on one second. I guess 077, thank you. 077. Okay, are there any questions about the OE budget? No? Okay. I know we all have a long night, and when there's no significant increases, I don't expect too many questions on them. Yes, Mr. Passat.
Mr. Lupo, you're putting in for a couple of nurse practitioners?
We're going to need them.
I got a great one.
All right, if I could ask everyone to just go all the way to the last tab of your book, since I have Vince here, and there's a couple different things that I'd like to talk about on this budget for capital, just because I have Mr. Lupo here and he doesn't have to stay all night and wait for other parts of the capital budget. If I can just cover the couple things that he's proposed in this capital budget. It's under capital non-vehicles, right at the top of the page, and it's internal building renovation and maintenance for $30,000 and exterior maintenance and replacement for $55,000. So, Mr. Lupo, if you could explain to council what those budget requests are for on the capital side.
Some of the internal maintenance is preventative maintenance. Our building is 15 years old now. We have a water heater in there and some other equipment that was only warranted for 10 years. So if that's going to break on us, or if it's going to start leaking on us, it could create quite a problem for us. Now might be the time to take care of it. I had that in there in our budget. We do need a secure room in our office for government-type plans. We moved everything out. We used to keep them down here. In this side, we moved all our stuff up. But one of the problems I had when DCA came by was them asking me how we were keeping our government plans secure. What we want to do is build an additional room, not outside, but internal room, that would give us that security that we need. That would be the police department's plans, the library's plans, all school plans, stuff that we're required to keep hard copies of and keep secure for security purposes. The exterior, for anybody that's gone by and looked, you'll see that after 15 years where the trim around our windows is all rotting away and coming off along with the corners. We've had some damage. It was caused by some of our little forest friends out there, the groundhogs. We're eating right through the base, so that all has to be fixed. I don't know what we'd find underneath, if there was any work that had to be done underneath. So I did request 55 total. I don't know if it's going to cost that much. Hopefully it's not going to, but it's a request. I would rather have to give some back than ask for more. That's about what it amounts to.
Okay, and there's one other, if you go to capital, the vehicles, which should be the next to the last page in your book. We're going to try something new this year, and I'll kind of lead you down the path here, Vince. Ordinarily, we would replace a couple of the construction code, either SUVs or pickup trucks that the inspectors use with vehicles of the similar kind. However, we felt that this year, given the interest among several of the council people to begin to explore alternative fuel vehicles, in particular electric vehicles. Also, I think that just the society is shifting towards these sustainable type vehicles. We're proposing 5 electric vehicles to be purchased for use by inspectors of the township, and it will also include the installation of 6 electric vehicle charging stations here at the municipal complex, which could be utilized by the public during the day. The township vehicles would be connected. There would be 1 extra there. The reason 6 vehicle charging stations and 5 electric vehicles is it comes in a cluster of 6. So it just seemed to make the most sense to, rather than to buy 5 individual ones, to get the cluster of 6. It could be used by a resident or a visitor to the complex, and then also 1 at the township garage when a vehicle was there and needed to be repaired. Obviously, we'll need an electric charging station there as well. And then we're going to create a parking area specifically for the electric vehicles, actually on Vince's side of the building, over by that driveway near the animal shelter. This will be specifically for the electric vehicles. It still affords access to the building for any visitor who would plug in there. but this is something that I think is, Councilman Chase, you've waited very patiently for several years now for this, and I think this is the right time to do it. It's a good project, and I think that we're going to find that as we move forward, many of our vehicles can be replaced with these types of vehicles. The technology has reached a point where it will never be an issue that a township vehicle runs out of charge when it's on a full charge at the beginning of the day, because they last for 250 miles right now is the type of vehicle we're looking at, and our inspectors would never do that in a day.
It's not as if they had to drive to Cape May.
There you go. And but the truth is, they probably could get with the technology now. They probably could. So that's the capital projects for the construction code office. And Councilman Galtieri, you have a question?
Just want to make sure given the size of electric vehicles now, they're sufficient enough for what the inspectors need to do?
For the majority of our inspectors, we're actually, and this is a start for us, we'll probably be looking in the future to get something that has a little bit more clearance for some of our job. We have some inspectors that go out that would not be able to use this. That's why we're only requesting the 5 vehicles now, because of clearance problems we have out on some job sites.
The anticipation, Councilman, just so you know, we've done a little research on the major manufacturers, is that Ford intends to manufacture an SUV probably on the Escape platform, which we have 2 hybrids right now in our fleet, which are all-wheel drive and have a higher ground clearance, and they intend to market them in 2019. So we're going to get a feel for them with the cars this year. If it looks like it's a success, then we can expand to different types of vehicles for different types of applications in future years. That's a good question.
Yep, just wanted to make sure that we weren't trying to be overly efficient and in the end preventing you from doing your job. So.
No, Councilman, it's a good question. We had some issues with the low vehicles many years ago. We were tearing transmissions out, but we took that into consideration. We currently have 12 vehicles in the fleet, so we're not replacing the entire fleet.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lupo.
Thank you.
I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. Mr. Zelenik, do you want to come up and do your engineering budget now? Since it'll take all of about 2 minutes. It'll take longer to come up. So I asked Mr. Zelenik to come up here out of order because he came into my office this morning and he looked not so good. I believe he's suffering from some back pain right now and would probably do better at home than he would be here right now. And I think that one of the reasons why he came here today, and he won't admit to this, is this will be Mr. Zelenik's last budget hearing. Mr. Zelenik has announced his retirement effective July 1st. So how many years has it been here in Franklin? 14 years here in Franklin. So I think this is kind of his parting shot. And of course, we can pass the baton to Mr. Hauk back there. There he is, to handle the public works budgets this year, since he's been an integral part of the budget process for public works. And I think that Carl and I will handle the public works and engineering capital requests later in the evening. But I think that Tom's deserved an opportunity to get in the car and go home. He's been here since this morning, and I know that look on his face. I think we're going to call it a night for him. So if I can have you just turn to the engineering tab, which, Kathy, help me.
Second set of tabs.
There we go. I got mine. So there are no personnel requests, no increase in personnel requests for the engineering department for 2018. And there's a decrease of $810 from $13,605 to $12,795 on the OE department request. Just to draw attention to line 028 on your budget sheet, professional consultant and specialized services, You'll note that the budget was $4,400 and the year-to-date for 2017 is blank. The reason is that this is as of 9/30. That's the tax map updates for the annual tax map that we have a shared service agreement with Westfield. And it was done at the end of the year. So there is the charge against that portion of the budget for 2017. It just doesn't show on your sheet because it was done in the last quarter of the year, and this is for the first 3 quarters on the actuals. So,
any questions?
These back escrow positions?
Mike, please.
so the question was seasonal escrows on the payroll. So Tom explained the seasonal.
Seasonal escrow is engineering interns that we have for the summer doing inspections for us. Under the escrow laws in New Jersey, we pay them $15 an hour, and we get $30 an hour for the work they do for us in return. So
Very good.
It's a nice return on
they're a
investment.
plus.
It's a nice opportunity for 4 engineering students from Rutgers to come in and work in the field with licensed engineers for the summer. And so it's a nice paid internship.
We've been doing that for about 8 years now.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to let Tom go. He asked me if I wanted him to do the engineering capital. I said, I think I can handle it. Let him get out. Okay. Police Department. So tonight we have Lieutenant Durham from the Professional Services Division, Division Commander, Sergeant Farrar, Professional Services Division Supervisor, the Chief of Police, and Richard Grammer, and Captain Greg Borland from the Operations Division. The Police Department has not requested any additional staff this year, so we'll kind of jump the budget to the operating expenses. In 2017, there's a request for $418,620, which is $22,255 decrease from the previous year's budget of $440,875. Just as a note, there's been a shift of a portion of the budget out of OE and into the salary and wage budget. So, I know, in fairness, there was actually an increase, and we'll explain where the increase is in a second. The decrease was historically contractual tuition reimbursements for police officers who are enrolled in college have been included in the operating expenses. And going back to my days in the police department, I always thought that was kind of unfair to ask someone in the police department to manage a budget when there was a contractual item that they had absolutely no control over in that budget. And if it were to go over or under, I mean, it's kind of like anyone's guess. So we moved that money that would ordinarily be budgeted in the OE budget into the salary and wage budget, which is really a more appropriate place for it to live in the budget. So that was $100,000. So this increase there's actually about a $78,000 increase in this budget, not a $22,000 decrease. But Lieutenant Durham, I'm going to ask you to explain what's in this budget this year that wasn't in the budget last year.
If you want to go to line, I guess, 138, that's our software licensing line. A expense, this is $6,300 is an added expense where This is basically an investigative software. This is something for our detective bureau to use. There's two things listed here. One is Leads, and that's Leads Online. The other is from TransUnion. So if you look at that one for $850, that's the TransUnion. That is basically replacing what we use now, and it's actually a decrease from $925 to $850. So actually going down, probably using a better more updated service. But if you see number 11, it's called Leads Online. That's actually the bigger edition. That is 6,000. Oh, okay. Okay. Leads Online. Last year, Detective Sammy Hernandez came to me around April or May when the budget was already done for last year. Said he had a new online resources that could really help the detective bureau out. What they were using was old, it really wasn't helpful, and that he had heard really great things about this. I said, that's great, but our budget's already passed, so do some research on it. I need quotes. I need you to tell me what it is. He went through Lieutenant Reiner and did that and brought me Leads Online. Basically what Leads Online is, it's a connection. It's been around since the year 2000. So there's a lot of police departments and businesses that are connected to this already. It's basically not just United States, but a worldwide internet of businesses connecting to each other, to the police departments, and different police departments connecting to it. So we can talk to someone or share information from a department in Texas, maybe for stolen property, common suspects, common motives for things. So it's basically a sharing network. It's also a connection for a network of businesses. An example of this where if there's an issue or a crime and they're investigating something on eBay, with dealing with eBay right off the bat, you're going to have to wait 30 to 60 days minimum. This network, it's immediate because they are they participate in this network. So it also has coverage in corporate expansion. So as companies grow and branch off, they're all still involved in the online resources here. So it really helps our detectives to cast a wider net in their investigation, especially with burglary, stolen property, things of that nature. So it's basically an updated version we don't have. And I think I thought it was beneficial to kind of bring it in and have them use it every year. This $6,300 is an annual fee. It'll be in here next year too, just so you know that. But I think that is well worth it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't see the numbers you're talking about.
Yeah. You don't have the subpages. She was referring to the subpages. Otherwise, like we talked in my office, you'd have this big gigantic book. Right.
Okay.
It's one of the subpages that describes it. So I'm glad that the lieutenant described it. Lieutenant, could you talk about line 51 for a minute, please?
Can I ask a question
Sure.
regarding the item you're referring to, software licensing and the lead? Have you already spoken to the IT department that is compatible with the systems that we currently have? And have we tried, is there a trial that they have that we can try or actually purchasing?
There is a trial period, yes, that we can try.
Okay.
Sure.
You have to talk in the microphone or on TV.
We actually had the trial period for a small period of time and solved multiple crimes. It's fantastic. Like Kristen was saying, it's the next level.
So line 51 is the purchase of vehicles. There was no purchase of vehicles in the 2017 budget in the OE. The reason why it is in the OE budget and not the capital budget is in the state of New Jersey, cars are not considered capital because they don't have a useful life of more than 5 years. So we have to budget the cars in the OE budget, not the capital budget. So, Lieutenant?
So here we have 3 unmarked Chevy Impalas we would like to purchase. These are about $23,000 each. These are to replace cars in our unmarked unit, Detective Bureau, professional services, cars that we're not adding, they're just replacing, vehicles that just have a lot of mileage and been around a long time.
Go, I'm sorry,
So
Mr. Mayor.
council should be cautioned that that's the car. That's not the radios, and basically double the price.
Little bit different, not quite. These are unmarked cars, so it's
So
not
they
quite double. There's no red lights on the roof, and which the bigger expenses, but there are certainly expenses that we'll talk about later, because then they are capital, because they do have a useful life. This is just the nonsense that is the state of New Jersey, so the equipment, most of the equipment, if not all of the equipment that goes on these cars has a useful life of more than 5 years, but the car does not. So the car equipment is in another line later when we talk about capital budget. But that's just the way it has to be as far as appropriations. So there's a couple things I just want to talk about cars right now. We'll talk about other types of vehicles for the police department when we talk about their capital budget. Just a reminder that the police department didn't buy any vehicles last year, and all of these vehicles are replacement vehicles for vehicles that are being removed from the fleet because they're no longer roadworthy. So this is not an increase in the fleet in any category. It's just a one-for-one replacement.
So Lieutenant, in dumb mayor talk, are these unmarked or are these the subdued marked?
No, these are unmarked.
Completely unmarked, okay.
Yes,
Just a
Councilman.
question, is there any add-ons that are transferable from older
Well, we
vehicles to
can.
this
Well,
one?
we can do that. We do that. The problem is, in certain cases, the add-ons have reached their end, useful life and end of useful life. As I can no longer talk today, it's end of useful life. Yes, there's the words I wanted.
There's also technology that.
And that's a big part of it too. Sure, but where we can reuse equipment, we do. But remember that the vehicles that are being replaced, because their end of life, are in some cases 14, 15 years old. So what happens is, as the interior, like for instance, radio mounts and things like that, the interior is no longer compatible in size to take the thing from 15 years ago and put it in the new one, not because it's no longer serviceable, but it doesn't fit. That's the biggest problem of all with outfitting the interiors of the cars. Okay. Are there any questions or other questions, I should say, on the OE budget for the police department? Okay. Let's jump to the 911 tab. And I have to say, I feel really good about this. I think this is my first budget hearing, maybe even going back to 2005 when I did my very first one as a sergeant, that the salary tab has a name for every person in dispatch. We're at full staff. And I don't know that that's ever happened. It's happened briefly, for brief times it's happened, but right now, and I know a couple of them are new, so I don't want to jinx it, but right now you're at full staff in dispatch, which is 12. And then we jump to the next page, which is the OE budget for the police department, 911 dispatch, 911 dispatch, I hate to say 911. It shows an increase of $1,500. That $1,500 is under maintenance and repair of other equipment, line 026. Line 026 is the bulk of that, and I'm going to say, without looking at my subpage, is about $150,000 because I just approved the purchase order the other day. Is for the contract under the state contract with Motorola for maintenance and service of our radio system. Our radio system, for those of you who don't know or don't remember, is not just for the police department, it's the township-wide radio system to include the fire department, first aid squad, all municipal operations, and the police department. So that entire contract is in the police department budget, but really it supports all of emergency services and public works and general government operations in the town. It's also a shared system with Somerset County that they not only benefit from our part, but we benefit from theirs as well. So, that's $150,000 well spent in my mind. I used to manage that along with Sergeant Farrar, and certainly Lieutenant Durham knows that when that radio breaks, you want to have that contract ready to go fix it, because if you ever went in that room and saw what that radio looks like, it's not tubes and wires. So, any questions on the 911 budget? Okay. Emergency management. The OE budget for emergency management shows a fairly significant increase of $3,000 over what is a very small budget, $2,250, now up to $5,250. And Lieutenant, if you could explain why the increase and what that's related to.
The increases of $3,000 for emergency food and supplies, and in our capital, it kind of goes back and forth with this. We are requesting the purchase of a cargo trailer. I know this for Sergeant Farrar is the expert. We had, the state basically said, we won't be able to come in and help you for at least 3 weeks. So you better be prepared if there's a emergency situation, weather, disaster, whatever it may be, that we could deal and help people pretty immediately. So what was decided or come up with, the idea of getting a cargo trailer and having supplies and equipment in it to be able to put it, and it can travel anywhere within the town and be able to help people right off the bat pretty quickly before any kind of state aid would get here.
And the size of a shelter that you're proposing to be able to be put into operation is to
8 by 18.
to house. But no, if you had to house people, how many could you house with this shelter?
200.
200 people. So this is the equipment to create a shelter for 200 people, which we haven't had up until this point. So certainly that's a good idea.
The equipment that goes with the trailer, a generator, cords, things that are of necessity in the trailer in capital. But what we have here, we took out and put in the operating budget, where the resources to actually go into that trailer. Beverage containers, recycling cans, trash bags, paper plates, cups, things like that we can purchase that can stay good for years, but are also necessary, but just can't be in the capital budget. They're in our ROE budget. We actually put them together, and I just removed $3,000 from the capital and put it in, because that's how much these products were to buy, was $3,000. So that's why they're moved over in the emergency, or in our OE budget.
So the original project that the police department put together had that $3,000. It included things like water and coffee and things that you would have at a emergency shelter. Disposables aren't capital, so we had them move $3,000 out of their capital project and put it into the OE budget. And then, most of our emergencies, if you think about this for a second, most of them are weather related. And generally speaking, we know that they're coming, which means 4 or 5 days before the hurricane gets here, someone can go to Stop and Shop and make that acquisition for the disposables and the perishables that will be needed to staff to supply a shelter. The other type of emergency is related to a building, whether it be a fire, and I'm not going to jinx us, and I'm not going to say where it might be or how it might be, but a large scale localized emergency means that all of those places that we would go buy these supplies are still open. You can still go to a grocery store when a building burns somewhere in your town. So this is the better way, rather than to keep it on hand. You make preparations just before you send the trailer out, and so that's this money that was not included previously.
So a question around this. It came up not in Franklin and other municipalities, though, and relief services. Will there still be a periodic inspection? You said that, yes, some of them will be perishables. You get it a couple days beforehand. Will you still be doing periodic inspections, like making sure that if you're using paper plates, for example, that the wrapping's still good on them, that none of our friendly animals from outside somehow got to them or something.
Yeah.
Well, and the equipment will be, there's no reason to store that type of equipment in the trailer.
Okay.
The equipment will be stored in police headquarters, so there's really no concern on that. There's secure storage rooms within the police department to store that type of equipment.
So the
or supplies. I
So
should
the
say.
supply, the trailer's more to have on hand. The supplies will be stored separately. That you'll know pretty much what's on hand. Then is that the intent, or
Yes, and the equipment that would go in there, like I said, we would obviously, that would be inspected and make sure everything's okay.
Okay. All right. One last tab for the police department. So animal control, no request for additional personnel in animal control. The OE budget proposed is an increase of $500 on a 30,340 to 30,840, and I remind council every year that the number 30,840 is incredibly artificially low. There is absolutely no way that you can run an animal shelter annually for $30,000. My guess right now is the contributions that are received through Second Chance for Animals and Angel Tales, the two nonprofit organizations that support our shelter and solely our shelter. That is their sole purpose, is to support our animal shelter, is probably in the $100,000 to $150,000 range annually in dog food, cat food, litter, cleaning supplies. To be honest with you, volunteer labor, all of the other things that they do, really, it doesn't just offset the cost of our shelter. It pretty much funds the cost of our shelter.
You forgot the mayor's contribution.
Well, absolutely. The mayor's contribution is a significant one annually, and he makes a face when I say it.
Move on.
I see, but you're right. He does that. But it is a significant amount of money that those organizations save us every year. And I will tell you that without naming a town, I received a call, I guess it was probably about 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, from an administrator of a large municipality that we border, who is in need of an animal shelter. We don't, there's no room at the inn. And to be perfectly honest with you, we don't want to do what you know you have to do when you're overcrowded in an animal shelter. And so we're not in a position to take on another municipality the size of the one that approached us. But the reason why we were approached is because of how well our animal shelter is run. So, that's a feather in the cap to everyone involved, from the police department to Katie Nordhaus to the part-time staff, and we pretty much staff that animal shelter with one full-time employee, and the remainder are part-time employees, one of which is fully funded by Second Chance for Animals.
So in an answer less than 30 seconds, hopefully, it occurs to me by the juxtaposition of the things we were talking about is, in Sandy, you had all these volunteers weren't able to come here. How did they take care of all the animals here?
Well, the volunteers, for the most part, are locals. Katie was here, and then the Somerset County has what they refer to as a CART team, which is an animal rescue team that they came and assisted. They have a pretty significant membership, and it's run through the Somerset County Office of Emergency Management, and they were able to assist as well.
Okay, so it's handled. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Now we go to the back. Capital tab. The capital projects for the public safety building itself will be handled by the Public Works Manager. What we're really looking at here is the vehicle tab. To start, under police, you see the capital requests, and I will let Lieutenant Durham tell you about what the police department is requesting on the capital side.
What we are requesting as far as, obviously, first, our vehicles. We did not get any vehicles last year. And this year, all these vehicles are replacements. We're not adding any new ones, any added number to our fleet. They're all replacements. We had three vehicles last year. One of our traffic expeditions, our low-profile traffic unit, and a black and white. All involved, two involved in motor vehicle accidents. They were totaled. The traffic expedition, Public Works took out of service because it was rust, it was leaking fuel, and it was a danger, so could not be driven anymore. So those are three right there. So what we're asking for are, including the three cars that were in our OE budget, were 9 total. So we're asking for one Ford Expedition to replace the one in traffic that we no longer have. Also, 5 marked SUVs for the fleet. And again, these are not additions, they are replacements.
You screw off the bottom. Thank you. So the next line is the emergency lighting and equipment that we spoke about earlier, that's a combination of the emergency equipment for not only these SUVs, but also for the police cars that we had, the unmarked cars that we had spoken about earlier in the OE budget. The next item is so when the mayor and a councilman remind a manager often that they want something done because something bothers them, the manager tries his best to come up with an answer. That would be the next one, which is called GRIP Idle Management System, and I will just explain this briefly on what I was able to find out through my research. GRIP Idle Management System is a management system that's installed on any type of vehicle, but in this particular application on police cars, whereby the vehicle oftentimes needs to sit and idle because it needs to have the emergency lights on, or it needs to have the air conditioner on, or the heat on, or whatever it is. And police cars generally don't get turned off from the time they leave the building to the time they come back at the end of the shift, because there's this need for them to have all of this equipment on all the time. There's a company that developed this system that allows for the vehicle to turn off when it's parked, but yet keep all of the emergency equipment available. If it needs lights on, it has lights on. If it needs air conditioner, there's a supplemental system that it controls that allows the air conditioner to be on, so it's climate controlled. And if it senses that the batteries are dipping down below an appropriate level, it starts the vehicle up automatically. If the vehicle is needed immediately, by placing your foot on the brake and putting the car in gear, it starts the car up automatically, and it goes when you hit the gas. It works very similar to a hybrid vehicle where the engine's off when it's stopped and it's on when you hit the gas pedal, but it's a little bit more sophisticated than that, in that it also works with all of the demands on the electrical storage systems in these vehicles with the batteries. There's a supplemental battery, but I'm not going to give you the engineering part of it. The part of it that really is significant is there was a municipality in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, for those of you who are familiar. It's a pretty big city. Their police fleet comprised of about 300 vehicles. You see we're looking to buy 5 marked Interceptor SUVs. One of the things that's happened with vehicles over the last, say, 10 or 15 years is they've gotten smaller. Police officers in general have not. And what that means is there's just not enough room in those vehicles for all of this equipment we now expect them to have. Mobile computers and all of the things that go out on patrol, AEDs and all. There's just not enough room. So the SUV has really become the standard. But Columbus, Ohio, had a city ordinance that prohibited the purchase of SUVs by their city departments. And so the police department went to the city council and requested the opportunity to buy SUVs, and in return the city council said you need to explore the idea of an idle management system in it, because there was this perception that they used more fuel. The truth is, under the current platform from Ford, the SUV and the car are identical as far as the drivetrain is concerned, and they really don't consume more fuel. But there's this perception that they do, that they're gas guzzlers. So this was the response. So they bought 90 SUVs, and they put 90 idle management systems one in each of them, and they cost $3,500 per vehicle. And in the first year, they saved on average $3,000 per vehicle. So by the time the second year started, they had already paid for themselves, and the useful life is about 5 years in the Columbus, Ohio fleet. So anything over just about a year was money in their pocket. They're outfitting their entire fleet of police vehicles, and they anticipate saving $1.2 million in fuel costs annually. So clearly this is a very good idea, and sometimes mayors have very good ideas, and councilmen too. So this was a good idea, and I think that its time has come. So what we've done is we've budgeted, because we'll do our own experiment. We're going to install them on 2 brand new vehicles, and we're going to install them on 2 vehicles that have been removed from the regular fleet and put into the outside job fleet. Those cars do nothing really but sit on the side of the road and idle. And we anticipate that this will have a positive impact. And if it does what we anticipate it to do, then we can begin to budget them for all of the vehicles that we buy in the police fleet. So that's what it's all about.
And credit where credit is due, the idea first came to me through a citizen, Sid Lenz. So
Okay, so, and
Thank you,
I
Sid.
know Sid. So, but again, you know, we talk about electric cars, and I have to look down to that end, and Councilman Chase has said to me time and time again in the 5 years that I've been manager, that isn't there something we can do about those cars that are out on outside jobs and sit on the side of the road? I think this is a very good opportunity for us to, use new technology to save money, but still allow the police department to be as effective as they need to be, and provide for safety for the police officers and for the work zones or whatever it is that they're protecting with their emergency equipment.
And I forgot to bring up about the charging stations, that we have a chance of getting a grant for the charging
We do.
stations because of the Volkswagen settlement. And I'm suggesting here that we apply for a Sustainable Jersey grant for the idling system.
I think that's, and we certainly can do that, and we're on the waiting list for the grant for the charging station. So
Yeah.
we did apply. It's just there's a wait list now for funding. So, okay. I don't know that you have anything else in the capital budget. Oh, I like IT capital, technology capital, which is should be the very last page of your book. All you.
We are asking for 14 of the mobile computers, the ones that go in the vehicles. We received 3 last year. Between, just as a basic, radios and computers have a warranty of about 3 years. So we're asking for 14 because through experience, Sergeant Farrar and Justin, through repairs, we have 39 computers in our fleet. They last an average of about 4 years before they really need to be replaced. They start to break down. There's issues with them, as Justin can attest. This year we've had a lot. So about 10 per year would be the perfect point for us to have. So we're asking for 14. Obviously, the older they are, the more they need to be replaced. Just 2012, we have 3. 2013, we have 11. So there's 14 right there. They need to be replaced. And if it was 10 per year, the last 2 years, that would be 20. We've only gotten 3. So instead of asking for 17, we're only asking for 14. So, but obviously they're needed.
Any questions?
Just question, not on the vehicles, but can we just go back to the
Sure.
OE part
Sure.
of the thing? Have you budgeted for the new recruitment techniques that you were
Yes.
talking about?
Absolutely.
And programs that open it up to?
Yes, so there's money budgeted for the academy itself, and there's also money budgeted to run an exam. And there's also money in there.
Like the old days?
Yes, like the old days, exactly, like the old days. That money has been included.
No, I took my brother's son-in-law there to the Ukrainian Center, and you guys didn't accept him, and today he's guarding President Trump. So,
No comment.
Oh, well, in fairness to the chief, if he took that entrance exam, that would have been, how long have you been a police officer, Lieutenant? 23 years? So it would have been over 23 years ago, because you were an alternate route, and we didn't give a test. I think the last test we gave is about, what year was that? 94 was the last
it was around
test?
93.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's hard to believe, but that's 24 years ago. So if there's no other questions for the police department, you're done, guys.
31 portable radios?
So yes, and so we can talk about that if you want to know. So the police officers are using radios from 2003, when we originally went up with the trunked radio system. They are now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarge, they're 4 years past?
They're a 4th generation.
But I'm saying, there's 4 generations past. 2009, Motorola stopped supporting them. So 9 years ago. So the problem is these radios there's no longer parts available for them. We've taken radios and kind of cannibalized them where we could to continue to make them work, but they're no longer under warranty, they're no longer under service contracts, and there's no longer parts available. So it's time now that we begin to replace the fleet, and this is really about 1/3 of the fleet in as far as handhelds are concerned.
There won't be any issues of compatibility between,
No.
I know it's frequency, but no compatibility between radios?
Actually, it's far more sophisticated than just frequency and frequency. It's a trunked radio system. It's just equipment that's compatible with a trunked radio system. So it's really.
Any chance they're getting lighter? Smaller? No? Sorry. Wait, engineers haven't gotten that far to start lightening your load yet. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Lieutenant, thank you, sir.
Well, I think when they came before us in financial oversight, one of the things we said was we cannot sacrifice public safety. So everything you've asked for, we know it's in the best interest of public safety for Franklin Township.
Okay, and now we go from public safety to fun. Recreation. So Alice Sipowicz, and I'm going to ask that Alice come up. I'm also going to ask that a couple other people come up to the table. Randy Jones, our chairman of our Open Space Advisory Committee. Tara Kenyon, who's our new land management consultant. I'll introduce you to her in a couple seconds. And also Carl Haug, Public Works Manager, because we're going to talk about a couple different things related to recreation and open space, kind of all as part of this conversation as we move through this. Recreation is towards the back, if I recall correctly. There it is. So we'll talk about the salary and budget first for the Recreation Department. There's some new things with the Recreation salary budget this year that I'll kind of talk about first. Alice came to me and indicated that there was a need for a full-time therapeutic program coordinator. And for those of you that don't know what therapeutic recreation is, and we've talked about this in the past, everyone's shaking their head, you know what therapeutic recreation is, good, okay. It's for those special needs children, and so what we're looking to do in the salary budget is to convert an administrative aid position to a program coordinator for therapeutic recreation, and we're also looking to create a new position, that of a special events program coordinator. The funding for the increases here and the new position will come as a result of some changes in the way we're going to fund salaries for certain employees, and primarily in our part-time permanent positions that are all program-related positions. Is we're going to charge more salary to the Recreation Trust than we have in previous years, so that the amount of money actually being charged to the general fund for salaries will remain basically the same. There's a very, very slight increase. That's primarily due to contractual increases for our current employees that are full-time. But the amount of money that the salary budget increases will be offset by allocations to the Recreation Trust. We've talked a lot about being able to offer additional programs. The therapeutic recreation program is one that we can expand here. And Alice and I have sat down, and we're also starting to develop a plan for increased programs as we move forward. One of the places, and we'll talk tomorrow maybe a little bit more about this when you have a presentation, but we're proposing a youth center on Lewis Street, and obviously there'll be a number of different programs that will be run out of that facility. There'll be an increase in staff, and we have the ability through our Recreation Trust right now, through fees collected, to begin to plan that already, because we have the available money to do that. So that's really where all of this is going. But the staff increases this year, the therapeutic recreation kind of speaks for itself. The special event coordination, coordinator position comes from just a demand. We are hosting more and more programs, Franklin Day Festival and the like, our 4th of July, and as we look to try to get our recreation staff expanding their programs, that means they have less time to coordinate all of the effort that really, it's a heavy lift at times, between the fireworks and parades and the tip, just the old standbys at recreation, like trunk or treat or bunny jamboree, all of those things, the tree lighting ceremony, it's just one, and we want more, and if we want to do more, and we have the ability to do more, we have the ability to put someone to do it on a full-time basis, so that we don't have to pull from Rob Peter to pay Paul. So that's the idea behind that, and this is, like I said, not going to increase the general fund salary appropriations, because we can fund things out of the Recreation Trust. Yes, Mr. Wright.
Mr. Von Luck, I just had one question.
Sure.
If you're using this from the trust fund, what does that do? What does that do to the trust fund balance?
Trust fund's
Zero?
fine.
Is it level, or
It's
I don't know.
fine.
So is that decreasing us, increasing us, or we're just going to stay flat?
To be perfectly honest with you, we need to use more of it. So it'll decrease it a little bit right now. It's fine. It will not hurt us in the least bit as we move forward.
In the future, moving down, it's
Not
okay.
going to hurt.
Okay.
Well, does the Recreation Trust Fund have money incoming to
That's
it,
how the
so
money
that-
comes from fees collected by the program, people who participate in the program. So it always has money coming in, yes.
I just want to, I hope that we'll be in a steady state situation. be able to continue funding through this funding through the Recreation Trust Fund?
I give you my assurances that we'll never have to be concerned about it. We'll manage it well. Okay, so that's the salary budget. Now, flip the page, and we go to the OE budget for 2018. As you can see on the 2017 lines on your sheet there, and these are annual actuals as of January 22nd, approximately 45,000 of the 50,000 that 50,042 that was budgeted in 72 was expended. So this is a pretty tight budget annually, and I give Alice a lot of credit that she budgets very tightly every year. She generally comes close to her number, which in all fairness means that she knows what her expenditures are, and she doesn't overexpend. And so the increase of $2,350 is primarily related to equipment repair and maintenance and recreation supplies, just your standard things in an office that has some increasing costs associated annually to maintenance and supplies.
You have centralized the maintenance and supplies, haven't you?
Well, this isn't office supplies. Office supplies are out of my office, and there's no, the only other place that there are a couple places that you'll see office supplies pop up in a budget, but there's reasons for that. Yeah, this is sound equipment maintenance, the $1,500. Yeah, so, but the office supplies, I will tell you right now, the other places you'll see office supplies is in the water utility, because we specifically bill all expenses of the water utility to the water utility, and in uniform construction code for the same reason. Uniform construction code, everything, because they are well, water is self-liquidating, but the uniform construction code has a DCA budget that we have to show every expense, so we budget office supplies there, but that's not a large amount. So so Alice said the recreation supplies here are senior and teen rec program supplies. Okay, so okay, that's the OE budget. And now I'm going to ask Alice to switch places with Tara, and we're going to go all the way to the back, next to the last tab, trusts. Musical chairs here. So we're just gonna talk, and Carl, feel free to chime in down there. You have a microphone, because there is some places where Public Works touches the open space budget. For those of you who don't know who this is to my right, this is Tara Kenyon. Tara was awarded the contract as our land management consultant on January 1st. You all adopted your consent agenda, and she was on it. She replaces Fran Varicali. All of you know that I miss Fran. I had a very good working relationship with her, but she moved to South Carolina and made it really hard to manage our open space properties from several states away. Tara brings with her a wealth of knowledge on these types of things. She comes from the Somerset County Farmland Management Office, where she worked for a number of years. She's a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey. She has her undergraduate from Rutgers in a related field, environmental planning. See, it's in there. And she's already hit the ground running. Things like we have lined up an unpaid college intern from Rutgers to work on environmental issues on our grasslands properties, which has been a concern of the Open Space Advisory Committee for a couple years now. So all good things happening in open space. And now we're going to spend their money. The open space budget, and this is the layout is a little bit different than our typical budget sheets, because there is no true budget like we talk about with the rest of the town, whether it be water or municipal budgets. The open space trust and how we budget money for the open space activities for the year is more of a spending plan. Oftentimes we budget big numbers and we don't spend them because we're trying to anticipate maybe an acquisition or things like that. So oftentimes the numbers are very big in the beginning of the year, and then the expenditures are not quite that big by the end of the year. In fact, in 2017, we spent about 61% of the money that we budgeted for the operating expenses, because this is one of those things where if you don't spend it after the end of the year, it's just there in the trust. It's not like our regular budget where, the tax is a fixed tax, and no matter what, that we don't control the amount of money coming in from the open space tax. So we tend to be maybe a little bit more liberal here, because we don't know what might be needed on these open spaces or acquisitions as the year unfolds. But what we do from line 011 on your left column all the way down to line 086 are your typical budget items that you see in our other budgets in the town. They're kind of the operating expenses. As you know, several years ago, there was a decision to take landscape maintenance for all of our parks and open space properties out of the general budget and move them into the open space. That's that money there. And that 2017 budget and the year-to-date expenditures reflects us doing all of the maintenance on all of our parks and open space properties for the year. It includes also part-time seasonals up near the top where you see salaries part-time. That's $64,500. And again, the request for 2018 of $64,500 is for part-time seasonal employees during the summer months. The 25.5 is for overtime on Saturdays on open space properties by our regular public works employees. But the big number, the $381,099, is the salaries for two 12-month a year employees that were hired out of open space several years ago, and then the remainder is a percentage of the balance of our park maintenance staff, their salaries. No other expenses other than straight salary. No pensions or withholdings or benefits, just the salaries. And so I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions about it? Yes, Councilman.
The line reserved for future use, where I see it's in parentheses this year. Now, does that mean that last year we put money into reserve and this year we're taking it out?
Well, the way the budget is, and if you look at the grand total of everything, if we spent every single dollar that we budget, then the answer would be yes. We would be taking money out of the trust and expending all of the money collected in tax. The number that's reflected in the 17 shows that we didn't do that, and that's why it's $554,000. That $554,000 is what went into the trust.
Mr. Vorlager? Over here. Oh.
And I hear a voice. A voice from above.
I have medication for that.
Okay. After the week I've had, and it's only Monday.
If we are to incur any cost going forward concerning any newer approaches to deer management, wildlife management, deer management specifically, what budget would that then be allowed to come out of?
Depends on the plan. And I only say that if every single thing that we did was related to land that we own and is parkland that's on our Green Acres roster, then you could use open space money for deer management.
So, I wouldn't really think about debating. I don't have a stance on exactly where it should come out of. My concern was that it's somewhere, there's some money
So
that's
let me
earmarked somewhere
good
in
question.
these budgets
And
that allows us the opportunity not to have to spend it, but to be ready financially.
So here's what the little secret about trusts. So this is my spending tutorial for the day. There are 3 ways to spend money in the state of New Jersey as a government. One is you budget it in your general budget. 2 is you pass a capital ordinance when it's a capital project, and then that's outside of your budget. And the 3rd is by trust. See, trusts are like the revolving thing of government. This money that goes into the trust, and that's why I prefaced all this with, this isn't your typical budget. This is a spending plan. The money that is in the trust is always in the trust and is always available to be spent for things that are specific, in this case, to open space and recreation and parkland and historic sites and all the things that this is for. But you don't have to have money in the budget. You just have to have a spending plan to satisfy the state of New Jersey, but you can always spend money on projects. There's no such thing as overspending a line on an open space budget because it's not held to the same type of spending requirements that the rest of the budgets are.
I understand all that, and that was
And
explained.
we have about 14 million in there, so
It
there's
expla-
plenty to
you-
control the deer if we
I
need
would
it.
have explained it similar. My question, though, I guess the bigger question is, if there's any chance we are not going to, or we may pursue any deer management initiatives that don't fall under the criteria for any reason that we can legitimately, because I wouldn't want to try to take money from a fund that wasn't specifically supposed to be used for. So is there somewhere else in the budget? What I'm hearing is we don't need to budget it. It's here. We'll see where that discussion goes and direction council takes. But for land that may not be covered, then where would that be?
I would say that it's not really practical to think that we're going to undertake that type of deer management plan in this budget year, that I would need to have budgeted money elsewhere in the budget other than our open space properties. I don't think that at this point, the discussions have not really even begun as to what we could possibly do to control the deer herd above and beyond what we're currently doing. That's a discussion item. Randy, when did we say? April? At the April open space meeting, we've set aside time to discuss again altering what we're currently doing. I say that I don't anticipate 2018 being the year that we take on a full-scale change in our management plan. So that if we wanted to budget money in 19 in the OE budget, we could do that. But again, I think it's premature to discuss where we're going to do it if we might not do anything. I don't know that there's going to be any change whatsoever. So before we do that, I don't know that it's time to budget money in the general budget. And if it's open space properties, the money is there.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, we can spend money out of the open space trust for any deer
property that's on our recreation open space inventory. So you can use open space money on
parks,
open space.
active recreation, but it doesn't matter type of land if it falls under that. Okay.
But we would not be able to use it on 6 Mile Run if somehow the state allowed us to.
Well, that's now where we start to go down a road that I won't say no to. So 6 Mile Run is on the state recreation open space inventory. Colonial Park is on the county recreation. So there's possibilities. I'm talking about utilizing a program of deer management on privately held properties. That I don't believe you could.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So anything on the OE for open space? All right. Well, then I'm going to ask you to flip to the next tab because there's a number and there's a number of open space capital projects. I will go through each one of them. If there's questions that I can't answer, perhaps Tara or Randy Jones or Carl Hauk will be able to answer them. Or actually Alice, because some of them deal with park equipment that Alice might be familiar with. So we see it. It's at the top of the page, open space parks. Everybody's on it? Okay. JFK Linear Park, including bike path replacement. Along the westerly side of JFK Boulevard, running from roughly Heather all the way down to, Webster, is a multi-purpose path. I think, what's it, about 3.5 miles? 3 miles? 3.5 miles? About 3.5 miles of pathway that currently exists with some landscaping along either side, trees and what have you. There was a suggestion made by one of our senior engineers in the engineering department that that might make a nice linear park, that if we installed exercise equipment and park benches and the like along that length of property, that that it might get some nice use. And it was vetted through the land use committee and met very favorably there. I think that everyone who's heard the idea said, wow, that's a really neat idea. We own 100 feet of right-of-way there. Actually bigger, 120 feet. I think 120 or 150 feet of right-of-way. It was you know, the right-of-way was acquired back in the 1960s because there was talk about an expressway that come through Franklin Township. That's why Clyde Road is so wide. It was supposed to come across from Route 27 and from Route 1 actually was where it was going to start and meet all the way up at 287. Obviously, that's never going to happen. And this is an opportunity to create a nice recreation space for the residents in that part of town who already use that. And we thought that since we were going to do this, the pathway is in need of replacement. It's fallen into a state of disrepair in some areas that can no longer repair. So we're going to replace the path and install the exercise equipment and benches and the like along the length.
So,
Go ahead, Jim.
oh,
Go ahead.
it's great, and welcome any suggestions wherever that came from, but just, there have been people asking, not necessarily for this to be, but for benches or for the path to be improved. So I'm going to say this kind of rolls it up into one neat package and takes what a lot of people kind of asking for years. And let me ask you, didn't we originally did have some of that equipment along the
There
path?
probably, I mean, I
first
seem to
built it
remember
back in-
benches at some point along the
So
way
this
there.
will, so the only thing that I'd like to see as part of this, I don't think it's included in here, and I know we've had discussions
So
about
it's actually not included there. I'm going to get you because you asked me for it.
No,
and you're going to
but
get
this
it.
is something new, I think. I think it's something new. But, and maybe they could be solar, but to have some lighting, subtle but lighting for the entire length, because it is open, unlike other, quote, parks in town, which close whenever, an hour after sunset, et
Yeah,
cetera.
it won't be closed then.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm saying
saying,
you're right,
and
it
not
won't be.
only do we would encourage
It's certainly
people use
something
it,
that we could
a lot of
put
people,
go to
a lot of,
design.
a
Sure.
lot of people would use them, and I see anymore when you go places when they are specifically for evening use. I wouldn't be surprised in the warmer months it gets more evening use than, or say,
Right.
non-daylight use. So if we can come up with something, and I'm not looking for it to be
So
expensive,
my
obviously.
public works manager is nodding his head yes. So that
that
gives me
would
an
literally
indication he
run
thinks we can do it.
the entire way, and
No, I know
you
exactly
know,
what I mean.
okay.
Kind of like pathway lights in a way. I mean,
And
there might
really-
be some other things that we can look at. I mean, maybe there's something that's embedded in the path. There's a couple different options that you might be able to
anything,
get.
I would say
Yeah.
the safest, and taking into account that we want, be long-term and with maintenance and everything else. But if we can do that, and I'm not want to spend a fortune, but I think it would be worth the investment, so that would need to be put onto here, right?
No, it's here. I mean, listen, we budgeted a number that we feel we can build a park for. So we can work it into the budget. I
And,
mean,
and I don't even know what, something like
Yeah,
garbage can, well, whatever is needed, they'll look at that, but the lighting was the main thing. So what, was
well,
there something
so
else
eight-
I
no,
forgot?
So you
forgot
must
I
have
already-
forgotten.
I
What-
asked for?
You did, actually, and I
Benches?
thought you did. You asked for benches
That
in
I
an
did.
area of town that I thought was a good addition, and that's along DeMott Lane. We also own a multipurpose path there along our open space properties that are further north on DeMott Lane and then down here by Middlebush Park. And so we've included that as part of one of these park improvement line items to install the park benches as well.
No, and that's all great. I think be well received, upgrading and utilizing what we already have. The whole width of that right-of-way is 100 and 120 feet. But we would always keep enough that would be.
Well, there's going to be a lever between the road and the
That's what I'm
driveway. Yeah, I mean the roadway. So listen, there's plenty of room for us to install the equipment and still maintain a safe space between everything and the roadway. It's not a problem if ever, and of course always if 50 years from now that road has to get wider. Although I think 50 years from now we're probably not going to be driving the same kind of cars we're driving now. Yeah, well, yeah, right now. I know we've heard that one. I heard that 25 years ago. We'd be in hovercrafts now. But no, I mean, it's just a matter of removing equipment. So I think that it's a very good use of the space, and it can be used for a number of different purposes, including adding it to our recreation open space inventory, which that might be a benefit to us down the road as we look to divert certain properties off the list. So things like that are all good things. And so good idea, Scott Thomas, who first said, how about you do that with the property? Okay, Castleton Playground replacement is the next item. That's just a typical replacement of outdated equipment as we move forward to replace all of the equipment in our parks. Conservation Park Playground equipment upgrades and replacements as well. And then miscellaneous park repairs and site amenities, that's the kind of place where you would find those benches, Councilman, that I was talking about for DeMott Lane. In a line like that for $50,000. Williams Park bleacher replacement, those bleachers are end of life and are not ADA accessible and need to be replaced, correct, Alice? Thank you. Middlebush Park Natural Play Area Phase 1. For some of you who might remember, this was actually the brainchild of Fran Varicalli and Tom Zelenik. Neither of them are in the room right now, but I'll give them credit. This was an idea to create a natural play area off the parking lot that serves both the synthetic turf fields at Middlebush Park in that area. And it's an area where kids can go play with natural things. You can have natural water features and sand and dirt and things that kids like to play in that would be something that if they were there because an older brother or sister was playing a soccer game or a football game, and it could be someplace where the younger kids could go play, and it's just a nice addition to an area of the park that otherwise would go unutilized, and that's the area between the parking lot and DeMott Lane. There's some natural wetlands areas on the peripheral that they can be incorporated into this play area, and it's just would be a nice addition. So we're going to include it there. We did do a grant application a couple years ago. Unfortunately, it was a national grant. We didn't get the funding, but I think that this is a nice idea to incorporate into the park. The next is 10 Big Belly trash enclosures for distribution as we continue to see the benefits of these solar-powered trash compacting garbage cans in our parks. It decreases the amount of emptying that our staff has to do. It increases their capacity. It notifies us when they're full by email. There's just a whole number of benefits to it. This first came from Frank DiGiovanni down in Kingston, who was a business owner on Main Street. There's a garbage can at a bus stop that was constantly overflowing. We experimented with it. I found them in Baltimore, uses them throughout the Inner Harbor, and I saw them there, and they've been met with great success there as well. And so now I see that they're all over the country, and they've really taken off. It's a great time saver for our staff, and it also keeps the parks cleaner because garbage cans don't overflow. Our garbage cans typically would fill on a weekend, and with this type of garbage can, it's got 8 times the capacity when it compacts, so it certainly is a big benefit. Miscellaneous improvements in ADA accessibility per an action plan that was done, I guess about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago? At least 5. I think I was manager, so 5 years ago. There was an ADA action plan for all of our parks, and this is the continuation of making our parks ADA accessible. 2 Bobcat lawnmowers to replace lawnmowers that are no longer serviceable and have been taken out of the lawnmower fleet to cut the grass at the parks. Inman bathroom upgrades.
They're about 35.
Mike, please.
Mike. They're about 35. So the Inman Park bathrooms are due for an upgrade. As Al said, they're about 35 years old, and this is the fixtures and toilets and sinks and everything because they just are
I think
end
they
of-
were due when I was doing Parks and Rec, and
And how,
that was 20-something years
there,
ago.
there you go. So,
So yeah, I think it's time.
so next, benches for DeMont Lane. I lied. We broke them out. We broke them out and we did them separately as a separate line. So that's the installation of
Bob, where on DeMont Lane are you
so
living?
along our properties. So we own land just beyond the Baptist Church and heading towards Delwood Lane. That's all open space property there, and along our Middle Bush Park frontage as well.
So are you looking to put lighting?
No, these would be-
possibly at all?
There'd be these would be in between the wooded area and the sidewalks, just for people to stop while they're out walking their dog or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, I don't know what you're going to find out as far as solar or, anything innovative, long-lasting, cheap to run or free if it's the sun. Well, no, but I was going to say is, not they have to light up the whole thing, but like key spots to where there may be a crosswalk or the beginning or the end. I mean, it's something that looking forward to where we may be able to utilize.
I think
depending-
that probably we could take advantage of the location of streetlights that exist and put the park benches in areas where there's already a streetlight. I think that now running electric for the couple of, so it's one thing to make a park out of a walkway and put equipment through the entire length of it and design it as a park, because then other things can grow in that. This is just kind of an amenity to put along a walkway. You're walking a dog and you want to start, it's a nice night, you want to stop and watch the cars drive by, as opposed to actually making it a destination. I think the JFK Park can become a destination. I think we might have to try to find parking for it. And we took those parking spots away years ago.
That totally different. I understand what you're saying, and just throw this in. Some people may have seen on our website or other press releases. The county, town is state. I think it's county coming from state or federal is coming up with almost $2 million to put into the DeMont JFK intersection without getting all involved with that. Part of it
Actually,
is
it's 2.9 at DeMont. It's just a section between.
Okay. But part of that will redo or create a new existing sidewalk from DeMont over towards JFK or over towards
Just up to the jug handle where Taco Bell is.
So I'm just saying, so all these improvements for people moving in
Yeah,
and around
absolutely.
that corridor will be
Lots of it. That's why we put that sidewalk in. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but
Oh, yeah.
the sidewalk that goes from just about the end of the houses along Easton Avenue, just when you come up from Easton Avenue on DeMont, on the right, that sidewalk that goes from where the last house is down
Yep.
to Easton Avenue was installed as we built that as part of the off-track improvements from Avalon Bay. That money came from Avalon Bay to do that, to get people down and then be able to go across to the Meadows property across the street that we own.
And with the park thing we were talking about, so you're really going to have a lot of opportunity.
I hope people use it. That's why we did it.
A lot of people within a couple square miles, that's for sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we got a lot to get through here. Middle Bush turf field and skate park fence replacement. It's hard to believe that we have to replace it at the turf field, but the truth is that with so many kids playing soccer there and the ball constantly pounding away at the chain link fence, it needs to be replaced in portions of it. But the skate park fence needs to be replaced, and the skate park has been there for over 20 years now, hasn't it, Alice? 99, 19 years, close to it.
No, I was fighting the skate park in 2004, so probably didn't go in until 2005. 13 years,
Okay.
14 at the most.
Needs to be replaced for a number of reasons, including safety.
Bob?
So that's why we're replacing things and things
Bob?
like that.
Bob, could you back up just 1 second? On the fence replacement, I've talked to you before. I sent pictures of it. Would that include the crown cap for the fence that you usually see it's yellow, that keeps you from pulling the fence from the frame? And then, when people
I mean,
lean on
I know
top
what you're
of
talking
it-
about. That's not the problem here, though. The problem here is that but when you kick the ball to the goal and you miss the goal and you hit the fence over and over and over and over and over again, it begins to stretch the fabric of the chain link fence, and that's what's happened here. I think there's two answers. One is yours. That's a part of it.
Right.
The other is a bottom rail that needs to be,
Right.
and it needs to be connected to the bottom rail of the fence so that it doesn't have the opportunity to push out. if you take those little metal ties and tie it to the bottom rail, it'll keep that fabric of the chain link from stretching as much as it does now. So this needs to be improved, and it needs to be fixed, and that's
So the yellow part, the cap.
that's a part of it too. Yeah,
That's
the top
part
cap.
of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, just one quick thing about the DMOT and that grant, is that some of that money, can that be used towards the bridge access as well?
there is no grant.
Okay,
I did not say grant. No, what I said was there were off-track improvements from Avalon Bay to pay for the sidewalk. That expended all of the off-track improvement money.
okay. So there's no money there for trying to
There's no
improve
money.
the
It's,
bridge
we
access
spent every penny
and the
of
parking
it.
there?
No,
Okay.
it's gone. That was used to build the sidewalk. Okay. Middlebush Park Playground rubber play surface. So the playground would have gone in roughly the time that the skate park went in, and I've been told that was around 2004. I think it was before then. I'm going to tell you, I was a police officer going over the plans, and I was, if you say so, I'll believe you. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The material that we used back then is no longer acceptable. It was basically ground up tires, and that can't be used anymore, and it needs to be replaced. It'll be replaced with the type of surface that we put in at Inman Park and Williams Park. So it's the newer version of a surface that children can fall on and not get concussions and all of that. But there's been a number of different issues with the ground-up tires from a health point of view that we need to get it replaced, and so it will be replaced.
What's the useful life for that? 85,000. How long is it gonna last?
Do you remember what they said on the Inman Park, Carl?
Probably as long as the playground equipment, which is roughly 20 years.
Okay. Now, Middlebush permeable pavers phase 3. So we can talk about this, and I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about Middlebush non-athletic field turf at the same time. So all the way at the bottom of the open space parks list. For those who are familiar with Middlebush Park and go there often enough to see what the condition of the grass is, I think that we've finally gotten where we need to be with our soccer fields in the back and the baseball outfield and all of that. The grass that is the athletic fields, we've put a great deal of effort in to get them to be quality grass fields, and I think that we've succeeded in that. The problem that exists really, though, now is the areas around the bleachers of the synthetic turf fields. It is New Jersey shale, it is New Jersey clay, it is red, it's not brown, it's not conducive to grass growing. I think what happened as that park was constructed and those fields were constructed and the earth was moved to do what needed to be done on the turf fields, what was left surrounding it was insufficient in topsoil to really let grass grow. And if you look at an aerial photo of it, and there's some recent ones online, you have this beautiful green, and then you have this red. It's not brown, it's red, and it's areas that just really need attention. So what was originally going to be, what was being proposed, is because it just turns to mud, is to put the concrete grass pavers, they call them, permeable pavers, into the turf, or dirt in this case, to keep it where you could still walk on it and not sink in the mud or vehicles sinking in the mud if it's an ambulance, whatever it is. And we put some of them in, and we put them in areas where it was needed. But I think what we need to do is we need to take a more serious look at how we can get the grass to grow in a park. It's a park. We want it to be grass. We want it to be beautiful. And so I had suggested to Public Works that we look into removing whatever some expert is going to tell me, and I don't know what that expert is going to tell me, removing several inches of that clay and shale and red dirt and replacing it with quality topsoil, fencing off those areas, planting seed, and letting the grass grow. I don't believe that permeable pavers are the answer. That's just a fix to keep people from walking through mud, but it still is not really what it should be. It should be grass. That's what the park was intended to be. We need to get the grass to grow, but we need to give it an opportunity, and we're not doing that right now. So the Middle Bush non-athletic field turf, I think, and I don't know how much it's going to cost. We've listed $100,000. I'll go back to the beginning of this conversation. It's open space trust money. I'm not saying that we're going to spend $100,000, but I think that we need to look at this. And now that spring will be here in a couple months, it'll give us an opportune time to talk to people about how we can really improve that. It's our crown jewel of parks. We need it to look like it. So that's what those two items are about.
I have one question, if I can. Again, going back to Middle Bush Park, between the two synthetic fields.
That's where we're talking.
So you're going to put pavers through there? Or?
No, I don't think that. No, I think what we're going to do is we're going to get the grass to grow. That's the goal here.
Because one of the things that we were looking at is because of the mud, as you say, and the clay and everything, would it be possible if you were to concrete a little bit of that and made it an area for sales? One of the questions that the soccer team came up with, and also football, even though we have the concession stand, would it be possible that you add a little bit more concrete and allow for sales of non-food items? In addition to that, Field 1 has a walkway of, say, 2 feet versus Field 2 that has a walkway of a regular sidewalk down the sideline. So when you go to the park, you look at one field, it's got a real nice sidewalk, so to speak, going down, and you look at the main field, there's a smaller sidewalk that goes around the fence. Are we coming up with anything to deal with that? Are we going to make that?
Well, Councilman, with all due respect, I can't come up with things unless people say things to me.
Oh, no, I
so
saw pictures
I
out.
can't. My answer is no. We aren't coming up with anything because, in all honesty, it's the first I'm hearing it. So, can we do it? Sure, we can do it. I don't know that that's the best application in this particular thing. We can look at it. We can certainly start to consider things. That's why, there's been a great deal of discussion about grass. That's why I'm having this discussion about grass right now, and the fact that grass isn't growing, and the Pop Warner and soccer clubs have both brought it to the attention of the town that they want something done about the mud condition. So I don't think that putting in permeable pavers is the answer to the mud condition. I think that the answer is get rid of the mud. And the way you get rid of the mud is you make grass grow. That was what it was intended to be there, but I don't think just continuing to throw grass seed down is the answer. Now, if there's a desire to put concrete in an area between the bleachers, I mean, certainly we can do that. That's not a great deal of effort involved in that. We just need to talk to the people who are asking for it.
So, but this wouldn't include the. All right, I'm going to take care of this offline, but this wouldn't include what you're trying to do in all of this around Middle Bush Park. And I think I'll go to land use with that because I was talking to my colleagues here, and we're on land use. Cars are able to park up. There are no barriers to stop cars from moving up on the sidewalks. There's no barrier that stops cars from moving up on the grass itself.
Aren't there bollards there now, Carl? So there's bollards around the entire perimeter of the parking lot now.
No, I took pictures of it.
We're in the process of completing the ball.
Yeah, around the entire perimeter of all the parking lots will be bollard space so that cars can't go drive.
Right, because I went through there and I noticed that there were spots there because we did a walkthrough, so I was trying to figure out was that included in this park, but if our
the
department head of Public Works.
Every single parking lot's perimeter will have bollards around the entire perimeter, so there won't be any way to drive onto it anymore.
Okay.
So that's the goal. Okay.
Excuse me. You don't see dog park. We've discussed dog park.
There's no place to put it yet, Mr. Mayor. We can't build one if I don't have land to build it on.
I thought we had discussed perhaps somewhere.
We don't own it yet, so I can't put it into a plan on a piece of property that we don't own yet.
Don't own Consolata yet?
Well, Consul,
We don't know.
I thought that
I
we were
thought it was-
going to have a master plan
Yes.
for Consolata that we will
Okay.
discuss. So we're really not ready to budget a dog
I thought
park
it was
yet.
going under the
But we
Power
have a whole
Okay.
plan for Consolata that has yet to even be discussed, so they include any items for Consolata. And there's another location that we don't own yet. So,
429 Canal Road.
and then I would go, 429 Canal Road. And then I'll go back to what I had said earlier is, it's open space trust money, and we can do that as a capital ordinance if we see that we have a place to put one. I just want to get through this one last thing on this budget. Just this, the 16-foot landscape trailer. Carl, why?
To replace one that we took out of service this year.
Okay, and Sand Pro ball field grooming attachments.
It's one of the last attachments to get weeds out of the infield mix for the Sand Pro we bought a year and a half ago.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman. Now I got through those last two things.
Upgrade, expansion of parking facilities over to Little League Complex. Where, I know you're going to say.
Would be in the
just-
operating expenses, but right now, we don't own the land yet. So until I own the land, you'll get if I need to build a parking lot, you'll get a capital ordinance out of open space.
Well,
That-
I'm just confirming that.
Yeah, we don't,
I-
it's not an OE budget item, that's what I'm saying, and far as the general capital, which is what these are the known things related to our parks, all right? Any projects, whether it be an acquisition, a parking lot on an existing, will be by ordinance of an open space ordinance,
So
capital ordinance.
Anything, without getting into detail, like if there's an area that we were gonna do any kind of engineering study or do any planned work, looking at, as long as it's on our park land or open space land, that can come
Mhm.
out of the budget, out of
Mhm.
open space and as it plays out.
Yes,
Okay.
okay. Historic, lost my space. Historic houses, Van Loo. This is the Van Loo Saddam House. This is the one at the corner, right opposite Bunker Hill Road, up on the hill there. It needs a new furnace and AC system replacement. Estimated cost is $21,000. And the Wyckoff Garrettson House, which is on South Middlebush Road, just south of the Hageman Farm. It's the next house south. It's the oldest house that we have. That's the one with the white face. It needs to be repainted, and it has lead, so we have to do lead abatement before we can paint it.
5,000 include the abatement as well?
That's what it's for. It's for the lead paint. Yeah. Otherwise, and I don't mean this in a negative way, if it wasn't for the lead, our Public Works Department could have the front of that building painted in about a day. It's just the one exposure that has paint. The rest is cedar shake, and it's just plain white. It's not like it's a fancy color. It's unfortunate that it has lead underneath the layers that are on, and it has to be taken care of. Okay?
Just one comment.
Yes, sir.
The trails, they're famous throughout Central Jersey. There are people who come here and they talk about our trails, and I would just say that please make sure that we have the trails in good working order for the summer.
That's why you pay that $25,000 in overtime out of the open space budget for people to come in and mow the trails on weekends, and you pay $60-some thousand, I believe, for open space seasonals to work all summer. That's what they do for the most part, is work on the trails.
Yeah, no, just a question. That railroad track and that whole area, is that being used for trails at all, or it's been written off? Okay.
That's not a budget discussion item. We can
Okay.
talk about
All right.
that if you want to
Okay.
come to an open space meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that gets us through all of the open space budget and open space capital. All right. So yeah, so as I've been reminded that there's, believe it or not, there's one open space budget item under the technology capital on the last page, $65,000. That's park and open space security cameras. The $65,000 is for cameras in Williams Park, in the Griggstown open space parking area, and Middlebush Park. Yes, I get a yes. I thought so. So that project will be the next step forward on the cameras in parks. The first was Castleton, which has been successful, and we'll now do a couple in Middlebush and a couple in Williams and one on a pole down in the parking area of the Griggstown Grasslands Preserve.
I'm reminded of the gentleman living down by Canal Road who, when we were first purchasing the Griggstown open space, was convinced that burglars would drive up to that parking lot, walk down to the back of his house and steal his television set. So now we can tell him we'll have those people on camera.
We will. Smile, you're on candid camera. Okay.
One quick question
Yes,
on
sir.
Middlebush Park. It's not on the budget, and I'm not proposing spending more money. How old is the scoreboard controller, out of curiosity, at the park?
How old is the field? I don't know. Probably I mean, I was manager when the press box went in.
You're saying about 5?
So I don't even know. No, it's not
Okay.
5. No, it's not 5. It's
All
about
right.
3
Well,
years old.
I'm not saying to replace immediately. Well, I can say that there's a couple Franklin Warrior parents that are still upset with me over a mishap with the scoreboard. There were 2 IT professionals who were trying to operate it, and it wasn't easy to do. So, just something in the future. I know they probably asked for it. I was told that was the board there, but we were sitting there trying to fill in for a ref, and there's parents still trying to hunt me down right now due to a time clock mishap. So, I just want to raise that. Listen, I'm just saying to the parents out there, I apologize sincerely, and I'm trying to put in for a better board that somebody not trained on it can operate. But I know. I'm raising it, though. I'm just asking the
Okay.
question.
Moving on.
Moving on. Thank you. All right. Any other questions about open space capital, OE, anything at all related to budget? Okay. Mr. Jones, Ms. Kenyon, I believe you are done. So thank you very much. Mrs. Osipowitz, I think that completes your journey down the budget road, too. And that means, Carl, you get to move all the way over here because the rest is all you, my friend.
Mr. Warnocker, no space at Inman to put a dog park?
No, not even close.
Small one?
Needs a minimum of 5 acres. Not even close. You're going to have half your park gone.
5 acres?
Yep. The other thing is, and I will tell you this now as we begin to look at locations for dog parks, it has been strongly recommended that it not be within earshot of any houses. And that's why we're selecting locations that we are. Because while people may not believe it, and we've spoken with county parks that run dogs, and not just ours, but others, and all of them say the same thing. Make sure you have adequate distance from the dog park to houses, because people will hear the dogs bark and they will complain.
How many acres do you think Colonial Dog Park is?
They're 5.
2?
There's 5 acres, yeah.
Gotta be 2, no? It's 5 acres. No, that's why Inman, I figured in the middle.
Okay, so I'm going to take you down. We got OE to do yet, folks. Let me get my glasses back on here. It'll start with the word streets. Okay, and we'll go to the Public Works, DPW salary sheet. All right, so.
Kathy, where are we?
Fire prevention.
Streets.
Just bear with me 1 second while we look for something. Okay, so so Carl had the opportunity to meet with the Financial Oversight Committee. It's probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago now, to discuss some increase in staff for a couple positions that he's asked for. There you go. That's what I was talking about. Okay. No. So we'll start there and work up So the first position that was requested is a part-time custodian at a salary of $20,000 a year, no benefits for part-time employees. Carl, please explain why you've requested a part-time custodian.
With the increase between the age of the buildings, existing buildings, municipal building, police department, senior center, social service, public works, they also maintain all the historic homes we have, as well as our parks maintenance building and now the newly installed concession stand. Right now we have one part-time employee doing this. He has about 25 hours a week. Everybody knows him, Johnny Began's been here 40 years. We need a second person to keep up with the workload and the work orders that are coming in for repairs that are requested on these buildings. You know, as far as changing light bulbs, minor plumbing, any kind of HVAC problems, which we don't have to call a consultant in, minor ones, door repairs, paint repairs, miscellaneous on these buildings. Every day we get calls for emergencies, so they handle that. And this would also free up someone who I have to assign to Johnny pretty much on a daily basis, a full-time public works worker, to work. He's usually assigned to the sign shop, so all our street signs, MUTCD signs such as stop signs, getting those work orders repaired in a timely manner. This person would also be able to help with the senior center, the senior activities and meetings that we set up for 2 times a week, which roughly take about 3 to 4 hours in a given week just to set up tables and chairs for each of the events that are in the senior center.
Okay, so that's the custodian part-time position. The next position that was requested was a full-time position, a laborer in the water department. So, Carl, the reason for the request for a laborer in the water department?
We are currently a little behind on our water meter replacement program, which originally was a 10-year program. We're 6.5 years into it, and 50%, right around 50% of the meters have been replaced. And this is swapping out the old brass type meters to the remote read meters where they're read off the FlexNet system. The meters will read more accurate, so we have more accurate billing. We need to, I don't want to say fast track, but catch up with the replacements as well as the troubleshoots that we have. So meters that have been installed, we need to periodically maintain as far as issues that may come up with the meters, and that's pretty standard with the system.
Okay, the next position that was requested was an equipment operator, but it's not a full position. It's one promotion without a backfill for equipment operators. So we would take it would be a promotion for one of our current employees into the equipment operator position. So tell council why that request for equipment operator position.
This would be this position would be for street sweeping. We currently are able to get out and do our Hamilton Street and small areas that we try to do the town in a given year. It doesn't really work out that way with people calling out and with the other 4 operators calling out. We have 250 lane miles of roads that we would like to get swept a minimum of 1 time a year. This is where we get a lot of complaints of trash in the summer. People are out and about. And I do want to expand the Hamilton Street program where we actually have posted street signs that we're going to be updating for alternate street type parking, where we will go down twice a week and sweep Hamilton Street.
Hamilton, or because I know the Hamilton, we already passed the ordinance, right? And
we do the Hamilton Street now.
And we're phasing in where I guess eventually they'll just have to start do stricter enforcement, but they're phasing into where the street will become available to alternate side.
Mm-hmm.
What about, and anything we could do to be more assertive, more aggressive with that, especially as construction projects are happening and whatever. But what about the side streets? I continue to get some complaints, and I know it's limited because you have to have alternate side to do the most efficient. But what's in the works for that? And then third, or to say second, when it comes to street cleaning, what can we do? What other towns do so that we can come up with something more effective than what we have currently, as far as number of times, people being aware beforehand? I know all the staffing issues. I know all the obstacles that have been brought up over literally a decade with that. But what can we do, and have we looked at what other towns are doing to have a better overall street cleaning, and then especially addressing the needs, which may involve ordinances, et cetera, off the side streets on Hamilton, near the business district?
Are you aware of a town that's doing it better? Because I'll be honest with you, Councilman, I'm not really aware of a town that's doing it at all.
I'm
That's why I'm asking. Well, you said have we talked about looked at other towns?
I don't have some
Oh, okay.
magic bullet. I don't have some
No,
secret
I just
plan.
wondered if you knew a town.
I just know that it's a difficult situation to manage, and that the needs have become are only growing, especially in certain areas. And what possibilities are there, or can we look into?
I mean, you'd have to break the town into zones. And you have certain times that zone would be swept. Right now, we can't send a street sweeper out more than 2 times a week. By this position, we'd be able to get out there a lot more and hit a lot more of the town.
But there's not an actual plan of how to do that, or you do have breaking into zones or recommending ordinance changes? I mean, I agree with what we're doing, but I don't hear that we've done, that we're doing anything different.
So here's what I have to say. We don't have
strategical.
anywhere near enough employees or street sweepers to do this town the way you're proposing that it would be done. What I want to be able to do is just get the little bit that we're doing now on a regular basis. All right. When we get into vehicles, you're going to see that's proposed in the capital budget a new street sweeper. It's $200,000. All right, 195. Right, 175. Close enough. All right, I'm going to split hairs. I mean, if you have a fleet of 8 of them, maybe you could do your streets regularly throughout. I mean, we just said 250 some lane miles of roadway. They can only go about 10 miles an hour when they're sweeping. All right, so they're not getting a whole lot done. But if we get the roads that are the primary roads, I mean, the purpose of a street sweeper is to keep the gutters clear of the debris so that those catch basins don't get clogged. That's really what it's for. I just don't see that unless we go into some huge project to clean streets, that we're going to do much more than what we're looking to do right now. Hamilton Street and the side streets off of it were part of the Hamilton Street Advisory Board recommendations for street sweeping. We've begun that in conjunction with the county, who shares the load on cleaning it. It's their road. We're going to do the side streets, and then if we can
do it in the summertime.
Exactly, and if we can get the rest of, like Carl said, if we can get the rest of the streets cleaned once during the course of the year, I think that's saying something. And I don't know that we're going to get anything beyond that. I just don't see that as us having the ability to do that, given current staffing, even with the increase in an operator. And really, the street sweeper that's in the budget this year is to replace one that would be removed from service. So it's not like we're going to expand it. We have one, we have 2. We're going to get rid of one and get a new one. We're going to have 2. There's only so many streets that they can hit in a day, and there's only so many times during the course of the year that you can do this.
Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting we can do so. I didn't have a particular plan. My concern was just that it's more and it's better or more efficient. Just with that, do you have any system to where if your street cleaners go into a certain area that even the people who are signed up for alerts could be told that it's coming through in a certain week or certain couple days? I mean,
So I'm wondering if this can be handled in Public Works.
I think that's where it needs to be handled. I don't think it really, but from a budget standpoint, we're requesting an operator. This operator will not only be operating a street sweeper, it'll be operating a backhoe and a front end loader and a grader and all the other a flush truck and all the other things that we have. This is just to increase the efficiency throughout, but with an emphasis on the street sweeping, so that we have two of them with multiple operators. Next, junior mechanic, one position, moving it from part-time to full-time. We have a part-time junior mechanic now. The goal is to move that person into a full-time position. I will tell you that there will be some turnover and some forward movement of our employees in central maintenance and at Public Works. The Public Works foreman has announced his retirement this year towards the end of the year, which means there's going to be people moving upward, which means that part-time position could become it could become important that we create this full-time position just as we move this person forward. So, Carl, you can explain the amount of work that this person saves our regular mechanics, but go ahead.
I mean, we have 300 plus vehicles and equipment fleet right now. We have the same amount of mechanics that we had probably 30 years ago when we had a fleet of maybe 75. We do about 1,500 vehicle maintenance work orders a year, and that could be from oil changes to water pumps to brakes. And this person here, who is 5 hours a day, basically is doing the routine maintenance and is really having a hard time keeping up with just the oil changes, the brakes. Majority of the stuff he was working on are the police department vehicles, as well as some of the smaller vehicles in Public Works.
Oil changes, tire rotations, so that kind of work. So full-time, part-time to full-time. And that's the end of the personnel requests. Next page is street and road budget. This is a flat budget. It's proposed at $163,325, which is the number that it was at last year. The annual actual on 2.5 was $134,000, so it's nearly expended. This is all this is general Public Works, so roads and general Public Works budget. Okay. Next one will be. You fooled me. Next one will be snow removal. Ta-da! There we go. Snow removal is a different kind of budget. There's a trust for snow removal. The current reserve balance as of 12/31/17 was $930,651. That's down slightly from $956. So we're budgeting $500,000, which is the same amount that we budgeted last year. We expended $495,000 out of the $500 last year. I don't know how much we'll expend this year because winter comes at the beginning and the end. So we might have a mild one in the beginning of the year, but we might have a nasty one at the end of the year. So we always budget. And what happens with this money, for those of you who forget, is that at the end of the year, this money where there's a balance left goes into the reserve. So that means that we have that for those times where we have a really, really, really bad year and we're over $500,000 in expenditures. Like if you look at 12/31/11, I'm sorry, 12/31/13 it was 718, and then 12/31/14 it was 483. We spent a little bit of the reserve that year. That was one of those winters that we go over 500,000. So that's why the state allows you to build that reserve for snow removal, because that's truly an unknown on the budget.
Bob, sorry, I know we were all trying to move forward. You just reminded me of something for the streets. If we go back one section.
Yeah.
Line 32 for road materials and supplies. I see you're estimating down. Have we taken into account the increase in the cost of petroleum products this year with this?
Yes, and along with our multi-year of repaving projects, it's been steadily going down on the repairs that are required on the roads.
Okay, so even with oil being up about $18 a barrel, we're okay with decreasing?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's up $18 a barrel now, but then I just saw an article where gas is coming down again. So, it's going to be a fluctuating thing. But the real bulk of the purchase here is going down. The actual tonnage is going down because of the improved, with less potholes. We're paving more streets. So, okay.
Not according to Facebook this weekend.
Well, Facebook is wrong sometimes, Mr. Mayor. Waste removal. It's just that. It's how do we get rid of our garbage, our own garbage. The biggest thing here is the annual contract with Somerset County to pick up our recycling. We're budgeting $651,051, and the reason why we're budgeting $651,051 is because that's what the county told us we're going to pay. That one is not much mystery. They tell us the number and we put it in the budget. So that's what it costs for our recycling to get picked up. The rest of this budget is things like us getting our garbage picked up at all of our facilities. Okay. Buildings and grounds. So buildings and grounds shows a $20,000 increase from $236,825 to $256,825. $15,500 of that increase is in an anticipated increase in the contract for the cleaning of these buildings. And that's a number that we know is real because we're just out to bid. We rejected a bid that you had on your agenda at the last council meeting, and we anticipate that this bid will come in higher based, and this has been a frequent, as you all know, a frequent source of issues going back to years before I was the manager with getting a qualified cleaning company to come clean these buildings. So we're keeping our fingers crossed again. So, hardest contract it is. Councilman, God, it is the hardest contract for, I'll take anyone over the one to clean these buildings because, let me tell you, it's frustrating. It is frustrating. So, vehicle maintenance. Vehicle maintenance is taking a jump, $69,000 up from $151,000 to $220,000. The year-to-date on 9/30/17 was at 141 out of 151, so we had a whole nother quarter to go. This is just as you have an aging fleet, you have to spend more money on parts. It's just, it's simple math. So it's okay. And that's all of the OE budgets for Public Works, correct? Yes, it is. I didn't miss any. So then the next one we're going to jump to is water, which is very near the end. Third to the last tab is the water budget. We've discussed the request for an additional employee already, so we'll get to the actual OE budget. Needless to say, this is a big number. It's a two-pager. Did they get new copies of this? Okay, so for those of you who got new copies because you were here, the second page had a mistake on it. So Kathy's giving it out. Okay. So as one would expect from a water utility budget where we purchase all of our water and then sell to our customers, the biggest expense is water, which is line number 72, water. Our calendar year actual on 2818, if my focusing right, 2818 was 7,167,519 on a $7.5 million budget. That's pretty close. There was a rate increase that was proposed from New Jersey American Water. So the $7.5 million budget for water for this year, I think, is justified, but within the tolerances that we would look for here to make sure we have enough money to pay for the water that we have to sell. The overall budget is at 18,651,466. That's an increase from the 17,200,000. I just draw your attention to there's an increase on the line just above it, total water capital requests. So these numbers include everything. These numbers include OE and capital and debt service as well. This is everything related to the water utility as if it was a separate company.
I'm sorry, we look like we're up 1.5 million?
You're up about 1.5 million, correct? Mm-hmm.
But that would include almost 600,000 increase in capital requests, assuming they were all improved. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to approve all of them.
Yeah.
You have an increase. I mean, you can see the differences in the right column. You have an increase of $390,000 in medical insurance.
Hard to say no to that.
Yeah. So that's, you have an increase in capital improvement equipment, $170,000 increase there, because that's the cash. That's the capital improvement for equipment. Debt service is up $180,000. I mean, the general operating and salaries and what I mean, salaries is up $231,000. $231,000.
Because of
Salaries are up for contractual increases and just the general salary increases. Was there another question? I'm just waiting. I don't have anything else to say until you say what you're going to say.
I think we're trying to absorb this. I think I'm going to have questions, but probably need to look at this and probably ask them offline. How much was the water bill up, just the water?
How much of this is water?
Right.
7.5 million.
No, how much was that increased?
It's not. It's the same.
I thought
It's
you
flat.
said there was a rate
No, I
increase.
said that we spent about 7.1 something, and I'm saying that I think that there's adequate amount of buffer there, even with a rate increase, that we don't need to increase it from what was budgeted last year. We spent 7.157 so far on water. So, out of the 7.5 that was budgeted.
So we didn't review this in FOC?
We did.
So the change from this page to that page?
There was a mistake at the bottom where it said 2016 instead of 2018 on the bottom line. And there was a formula error that made it look like we were spending $4 million more instead of 1.5. That's what the old sheet said. Those were the only errors on the sheet.
And the capital improvement, 170,000 for the equipment was for what? Line item 105?
Yeah, that's. So basically, the cash capital items, like Kathy just said, water meters and those things that are in the capital budget for every year, recurring capital expenses.
So, talk it up to an aging mayor, but I don't remember this that well from FOC. So if this could go through us at FOC again, I don't know that you need to have your water manager there. Maybe you can just do it, but I would appreciate going through this in
I
detail.
mean, we can go through it again. I don't know if there's anything that's going to change before, but this budget, the numbers are the numbers. I can't make the debt service go away. I can't make salaries go away. I can't make medical benefits go away, and I can't make water go away. And that's there's what's in this budget. If you look at page 1 of the cover sheet, Mayor, all right, which is where the general expenses to run the utility are, and if you look in the right column, there's no change. There's one line that changes at 14.4, all right, where we overspent equipment maintenance and repairs, including copiers. We budgeted $16,950, and as of 2/8, we had spent $22,677 on that line. So we've added money to that budget for this year so that we don't go over. There's no other line that has any increase. The page 2 of the cover sheet are all those things that we really have no control over. Medical insurance, Social Security, pension, disability insurance, software licensing, debt service, debt interest. Those things in gray are things that are fixed. I don't have any way of changing those numbers. And that's where you see the big increases.
Well, the capital improvements.
Depending on how you fund capital projects, I mean, this shows capital projects being funded as cash.
Is there staffing increases?
No.
How do you get a 40%?
Well, there's appropriations across the board where people have gotten increases, yeah. Sure.
What's our water surplus?
About $10 million.
And we don't have the Rocky Hill expenses in here.
That's already been funded
Okay.
by bond.
Oh,
That's part of your debt service.
so if we don't have it in our FOC, I just want to sit down with you, and you can beat me over the head with this one more time, but I just want to go over it.
We'll go over it 10 times. I can't make those numbers change into gray. They are what they are. And there's the numbers on the other side of the page are not increased. So.
Okay.
I think it's the shell shock of the numbers.
I think that
quite
what
large.
you're looking at there and why it's shell shocking is because it includes every capital project as cash. You don't ordinarily do that. This budget sheet has not taken into account the funding mechanisms that you're going to use to fund capital projects. If you remove $3 million of capital projects out of that list, suddenly that number doesn't look so scary anymore. That's what this comes down to. I mean, if you look at the sheet in the back, the capital projects under capital, okay, if you look at the water capital, it's $2.831 million. Okay, we're not necessarily going to do $2.831 million worth of capital in cash in the water utility in 2018. We haven't talked about funding yet.
All right. I still need to understand it as well as you do. So, go over it. Okay.
Okay.
Move on.
That's it. That's it for water. Unless somebody has any other questions about water, there's nothing more to talk about.
Okay. We have what, IT left?
Yep. So, you're done. What, capital? Oh, no. No, we're not. I lied. We got all this capital here yet. That's why we're gonna.
Water utility capital?
Huh? No, everything capital. We didn't do township capital yet. Capital non-vehicles. If you look under the capital tab there We haven't done capital yet. That's operating. So we've done construction. I'm going to try to be as descriptive as I can for these capital projects that are proposed. Community center, you see where I'm at on the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Community center, chairlift replacement. This is the lift that gets people up onto the stage. It's ADA required, and the old one is 1998, and it requires repair just about once a month. Phase 2 of the HVAC replacement to bring in more efficient HVAC systems. There's about 10 air conditioning units on the building, and this is phase 2 of that project at $105,000. Stage LED lighting replacement has been requested, and we've had discussions in financial oversight about that. That's requested at $35,000. It's the stage lighting.
Yeah, but did we get an answer that LED lighting for staging is?
Are you asking if it's necessary?
Right, is
Yeah,
LED light, because they're requesting specifically LED, but for staging.
Right, so we have stage lights, right?
We do. We have stage lights.
Right.
Look at your sheet.
We
Yeah.
talked about this
Yeah,
at FOC.
no, I understand.
And we said,
So they
Okay.
work. They work.
So they work. Yes,
Okay.
they do.
So
They've been requested for replacements.
I think the deputy mayor is asking how necessary, if they're working,
They can last another year.
keep going.
Bathroom and kitchen upgrades. Again, I'll just reiterate, this building was built in 1998. It's 20 years old now, and their bathroom and kitchen fixtures are due for replacement. It'll be replacing older fixtures with more high-efficiency fixtures, from the bathroom toilets and sinks and what have you. That's the bathroom and kitchen upgrades. And also the same as the kitchen oven replacement. Again, the oven is 20 years old and it's due to be replaced. Engineering, this is the $2.5 million road resurfacing. A Treptow multi-use path. For those of you not familiar, Treptow Road is over here, just not far from the back of Municipal Building here. It intersects at Wilson Road that runs parallel to DeMott. There's a small section from the end of the Pizzo and Pizzo development to Wilson Road that was never built, and it's been requested by residents who live in the Quail Brook area that has the multi-purpose path in theirs, that they connect it so they can connect this path all the way out to Cedar Grove Lane. So that's what that is. And then $750,000 for the BOE sidewalk improvements phase 2. This would be the continuation of so there were the 4 roads, and it'd just be the continuation of that BOE roads that were identified as walking routes for children.
One quick question.
Sure.
Did we solve the problem with the PSE&G?
Well, I was not at your land use meeting, Councilman, but I'm understanding that you were told what the situation was by the engineer at the land use meeting, Mr. Russo from CME, who's designing the project, and that matter's being resolved and we should be ready to go out to bid, correct? Okay, that's what I thought was my update. Okay. Municipal building, lighting improvements phase 2. This is replacement of high energy lights with low energy lights to be more efficient and save on our electric bill. In this building, this is part 2 of that project. The server room HVAC, this is it's been on the fritz for the last year and a half and needs to be replaced so that we don't lose our servers. Sidewalk repairs, $55,000. This is around the municipal complex. These are sidewalks that were identified by a safety inspection of our municipal complex that need to be replaced due to spalling or cracking to eliminate any kind of trip hazards. Bathroom upgrades again in this building again. So we say 1991 for the police station, 1998 for the senior center. This building's 1972. It's time to replace old and antiquated fixtures with ones that are more efficient and work all the time and don't require us to call the plumber about once a week to come fix them. Now, this one, building frontage, curbing to Amwell Road. So from our driveway, which has the gas pumps all the way to DeMott Lane, all the way to Amwell Road, I'm sorry, along the frontage, all of which is property that we own. There are no curbs. For the rest of DeMott Lane, there are curbs, but for that section, there are no curbs. What we now have, as we begin to utilize that corner lot for things like the farmer's market, and we have more and more things here, it becomes unsightly, if not creating potholes by the library. I'm not sorry, by the, yeah, well, by the library and by the, across the street from the post office, and so this would eliminate that and clean up our own front yard, really is what it amounts to. Building door replacements, phase one. This is the exterior doors of the building. Again, just going back to the age of the building and the fact that it's now 46 years old. The doors and windows, which is the next one, phase two, building window replacement, are the things that, you know, anyone who sat in my office or my conference room at night and heard the wind whistle through the windows knows what I'm talking about.
Is there a way that, just by the size of the job also, maybe that can be separated into 2 years?
That is separated into multi-years. This is phase two.
Oh, so we're talking about.
The doors are phase one, and there'll be a phase two, and this is Windows phase two.
Windows for the municipal building we're in right now.
Yeah.
There's multiple phases of $500,000.
There's a lot of windows in this building.
I'm just
Mr.
asking.
Councilman.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
guess.
it's a lot of money. It's a lot of windows.
So you got 500,000, another phase of 500,000?
Yes, this is going to be a 2 or 3 year, depending on the type of windows we get, which are going to be high efficiency.
Do we need as much windows as we have? Can we have? No, I'm saying when you're going to replace them, there's the time to review that this was built.
Well, I don't know where you would take windows out.
No, I know, but sometimes they put them back. Look, I'm just asking for spending $1 million. Are we looking at the best way of?
Sitting there with their winter coat on.
I'm not saying not to replace them. I'm saying that maybe we have too many windows.
Okay, let's move on.
But anyway,
I don't know how I could answer that, Councilman. Okay. I really don't. We have a building with windows. You replace windows with windows. If you want me to block them in, we'll create offices with no windows.
I'd like to replace some windows in my house.
I mean, something that can wait is the curbing. It's not a big ticket item.
do we need the curbing for the purpose of the farmer's market, or if for any?
So is it
presently?
there's, you know, so obviously we do things sometimes for not reasons that are vital to the operation of the township.
Mm-hmm.
We have a front that has no curb. Could it wait? Sure. It doesn't ever have to be done. What happens is it's just you know the aesthetics of it, but also the creation of potholes where people, you know, somebody stopped to make a left at the post office. People go around them. They drive into the mud. They create the ruts. I mean, it's that.
So if it's not a safety issue, maybe we can wait on that. Plus, when the gazebo situation is finished, who knows what kind of entry or exit or.
No, there won't be any.
Well,
there won't be any entries off the road. But
we can if we do it next year.
I think that it could wait. This is an optional project that you have the ability to say yay or nay to. It's not something that's required.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Is it impact? I guess to your point with the potholes and everything, is it impacting the lifespan of the roadway in that area?
No, it doesn't have any. It's off the road. It is an optional project.
It's an aesthetic.
I said that's the word I used, aesthetics. It's all about the aesthetics and how it appears, and it creates a mud pit over there by the corner field. Okay. Public safety building, phase 5 and final. Replace carpet. See, we do things in phases, Councilman. That's why, so we don't get hit with one big cost in 1 year. This is the carpet in the courtroom. Again, building built in 1991. There was some concern about, you know, in the past there was constant leaks in the ceiling. Those things have been repaired, and this will finalize the carpet in the public safety building.
And at financial oversight, I asked you to maybe you haven't had time to get to it, but look at the ceiling tiles in the courtroom. Have you been able to do that or not yet?
Yes, and we'll repair, replace as needed, yes.
Because they're stained.
It's just a OE.
And behind
project.
where the high, behind where the judge sits, there's some decorative things in the woodwork that are, you're looking at glue from a piece that fell down, 2 pieces actually. There were metal pieces over the wood. That can be, it's our courtroom. It should look nice.
Yes.
Stop looking at me like that, manager.
I'm trying to, I think we should make them 24-karat gold so that they look beautiful. No, we talked about it. It's already on the list of things to do. It's not a capital project. It's just general maintenance.
Okay.
Okay, same with the ceiling tiles.
Spending a lot of time in
That's
court.
what you should say.
So, moving on. Public Works Building, re-roof pole barn, Phase 3, $55,000. This is the new roof. This will be the final. It'll finish the roof on the pole barn, which is where all of the trucks live when they're sleeping at night, which we won't be doing if I keep doing this. Building lighting upgrades. This is, again, just lighting upgrades to more efficient lighting fixtures in the Public Works garage. Building window replacement. This one's only $15,000 because they don't have as many windows. There you go. So they solved the problem. In a garage, you don't need windows. You have 4 windows in the office, and they're going to get new ones because they leak.
Do we need more windows?
We should put more windows in to let in the natural light. He's not paying attention, Mayor. So it was lost.
It's okay.
It was lost. And parking lot paving, which, and while the Public Works Manager will not agree with me on this one, I think that it needs to be done, and I agree that it needs to be done. I think that when we look at a capital projects list like we have this year, and there's a number of projects on here that we probably won't do because of cost, I think this has to be one of them that we give thought to as we move forward. I'm talking about the paving, Councilman, of the parking lot. So that's it. But we've already talked about the window replacement, but you missed, the mayor and I had a little joke there, and you missed it.
I've never suggested you box up people's offices
well,
without
well, we're putting more windows in at the Public Works garage to let in the natural light so that we can save money on electricity because they work only during the day.
If we take away all the manager's windows, he won't be able to see when I pull in, so he won't be able to run.
Well, I won't be able to unlock the door.
Yeah. Won't be able to lock the door and hide under your.
It's always locked. All right. Public Works, 2 salt spreaders. Carl, tell them why you need 2 salt spreaders.
These are, we replaced the bodies of these 5 Sterling trucks, and these are 2 spreaders that were original from 2003 that need to be replaced, end of life.
Did the salt affect them?
A little.
Okay. Do they rust when they get salt on them?
Very rusty.
Good, okay. Just want to clarify that. Here's my favorite project of all, the one that I look forward to every year. I hope that there's like 15 phases to this project. It's the Canal Road Guide Rail Replacement, Phase 6.
No.
I think that what will happen is when we finally get to Phase 10, it'll be time to start Phase 1 again because it'll be that long because there's, I think, a 10-year life expectancy. So we'll just always be putting up guide rail on Canal Road so that people don't drive in the canal. Yes, I know. So that's the mayor's favorite project, too. Bus shelter repairs, Phase 2.
This is to purchase another 3 bus shelters, which Public Works will install.
Which I think is not a necessary project, Councilman. Our bus shelters.
If you just start it now, we may get the equipment in 3 years.
So for those of you who don't know, though, in all seriousness, New Jersey Transit, for these bus shelters, they do the initial install, and they did the initial install many years ago, and then they turn them over to the town, and they tell the town that it's our responsibility for repair, maintenance, and replacement, and they also tell us what kind we have to put in. There's not a lot of option here, and some of them are in need of replacement. They're probably now about 25 or 30 years old, if not more. So that's what that's about. A post driver for the tractor.
We've been doing a lot more snow fence installs for special events, and this is a safer way to drive the post that holds up the snow fence.
And we put up a lot of snow fence in the winter as well. Printer and software for the sign shop.
Our current printer is more than 20 years old in creating the signs, and it's pretty much end of life, beyond repair for parts. This would give us a lot more function, not only to do the signs we do now, but any kind of specialty signs that we need to do with the software.
I think the old one's dot matrix. People don't even know what dot matrix is. Yes, Councilwoman, I hear you over there. A portable conveyor for the salt barn. I know why this is here. I also have kind of had some discussions on the side about this. It has an efficiency, but go ahead.
Do we really need?
Well, he needs to tell people what it is. So.
Well, it is what it sounds like. It's a portable conveyor. Right now, we are only loading our salt barn about 85% of capacity, because we do not have the equipment to be able to get the high pile in there, if you want to call it, and fully load the barn.
I haven't asked this question, and I should have before of Carl, but how many tons does our current facility hold?
2,500.
2,500 tons, and we're not getting 2,500 tons in there.
Somewhere between 19 to 2,000.
Okay, so would there be an efficiency in the cost of the salt to get an extra 500 tons in there, or would it just be to have another 500 tons on hand?
To have another 500 tons on hand, because there may be times.
No, I'm not saying there's not a need for it. I'm just saying there's not a cost savings on the salt.
How many tons to salt all our roads?
To do every road once in town is about 650.
And you're asking for basically one more salting.
One more salting, right? That's about right. Okay.
65,000.
Within the last 4 years since I've been here, we had 1 year where we could not get salt. That it was out. That's why we increased the capacity.
Okay.
I'm looking at a $5.3 million
Yep, you are.
capital budget.
You're absolutely right.
So.
And the next one is the acquisition of a piece of property adjacent to the Public Works garage, and I only say that it would be of great benefit for us to be able to increase the space that we currently utilize for storage of equipment and supplies and what have you. The property's not currently for sale. I say that we don't need to budget this $250,000 because I'll go back to that conversation I had a couple hours ago, it seems, where I said there's 3 ways to buy things, and one of the ways to buy things is a capital ordinance. And so we could adopt a capital ordinance to make this acquisition if we so choose, if it was available and on the market, or if we pursued it. So I don't think that you need to include that $250,000 in the budget. So in this particular case, I'm really just saying I'm going to remove it. I don't think that it needs to be there. So you all get to remove stuff, and in this type of case, usually I get to remove it before you even see it. But in this case, I didn't realize exactly until I looked into it further after it was already in the budget and after it already gone through financial oversight that we don't need to budget the money. We can deal with it down the road if it's available.
So we have questioned the stage lighting, the Treptow multi-use path, building frontage on the curbing on Ammo Road, parking lot, paving, conveyor belt, and the property.
That's correct. You have.
So that's, Councilman Basanella just added it up in his mind. It says it comes to around $500,000, which is
Looks like about $500,000.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, it's 400,000 on the 3 things, 2 things alone. 250 and 150 is 465. 500, 570, 565, 565, 565
Sold.
in my quick math.
With or without those, is there a recommendation on the funding mechanism?
Not at this time, no.
No, that comes at
That
the
won't
end.
come till much further down the road, when I actually give you a budget.
Because that decides how much we're going to raise taxes. Or
I have not prepared a budget yet because I don't have the ability to until I have all the numbers, including state aid, which we don't have yet.
So I just have a question about something
Sure.
that I don't think it was in any of these budgets. I don't necessarily know if it needs to be, but if during the year we decide we would like, whether it's just one here or there or an area of a road, if we want to increase street lighting by adding lights anywhere, where would something, I know, I
No,
understand.
I would
that-
say, street lighting's in the next budget hearing.
It
Let's
is.
talk about it there.
Okay, so it is.
Yeah, there's a
that's-
whole lot of work underfoot, as far as street lighting is concerned. We still have an IT budget to do.
Right. Thank you.
And street lighting gets done in utilities.
All right, real briefly, have we started, because we talked about the salt amountage used, have we started looking at brining solutions, not necessarily?
We already do it.
You do a
We do
true,
brine.
you do a true pre-treatment brine?
No.
He's shaking his head no.
You're working on the whole, yeah, it's a project that's underway, yeah.
That's what I'm asking,
Mhm.
so you're looking at it, so
No,
that.
we're not looking at it, we're like building it. It's a project that was included in last year's capital, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that could answer the question on if we need the true salt tonnage then.
IT budget.
No, we still got water budget.
Last one, social
I'm sorry.
services, just bathroom
Oh, yeah,
upgrades.
water budget. Oh, God. Getting late.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to concentrate.
It's hard to concentrate at 10 to 10. Usually we're doing this at 11:30 and we're not done yet.
I'm older now. I'm
Oh,
older
yeah,
than
you
last
are.
year.
Water. Ready? Annual valve replacement program. So some of these things are standard, so I don't know that we need to talk about them at any length because they're the things that we do every year. And I'm going to do the ones. So annual valve replacement, annual hydrant replacement, automated meter reader meters and transmitters. And if you go down to the annual main replacement, cleaning and lining, those are the standards that we budget every year in the water budget for that amount. Valve replacement, hydrant replacement, meter replacement, and main replacement, cleaning and lining. Okay? So there's those. The New Jersey American meter pit upgrades. So this is all of our interconnects with New Jersey American Water. This is upgrades to the equipment in those meter pits. And it's never been done since when? Ever? Ever. So clearly it's time for upgrade because we've had interconnects with New Jersey American forever. 1962. So it's time to upgrade the equipment. A hydro hammer attachment.
This would connect to our existing backhoe for water is set up with the lines to do this. This would be able to jackhammer quicker through thicker pavement.
Okay. So I'm going to tie the next one, south tank capacity increase, to a couple different things, and we're going to have just a real quick discussion about this. South tank capacity increase. This south tank is the one that's off of 518 down off of Ridings Parkway, out in the middle of the woods there. It was put in there to increase pressure on the 518 main and increase capacity on the southern the system, because it's a disconnected system from our main system. This is the Little Rocky Hill main and 518 main. So there was originally a request to increase the capacity by building the tower, the tank higher. There was also connected to that another interconnect with the South Brunswick main that runs parallel to the Rocky Hill main. However, after some discussion about this, I felt it was, so Carl and I had an opportunity to have a meeting a couple months ago with representatives of New Jersey American Water. New Jersey American Water serves some of our residents down in Kingston, and there is a water main on Route 27 that goes up to Raymond Road, which is not far from the terminal end of our water main for Little Rocky Hill. One of the things that we had discussed, and one of the things we're going to pursue, and one of the things that we're including in this budget, where that South End interconnect study, is the possibility of an interconnect with New Jersey American Water at the bottom of the hill, so to speak, of our Little Rocky Hill main, which then at the top end will be connecting to our main that ends right around Princeton Highlands Boulevard. So we could, in effect, create a loop system where we could get water from New Jersey American at the southern end of town into that water main that then would connect with our main, and that means we would be much more likely to hit our 4 million, 4.5 million mark every day that we're supposed to be buying from New Jersey American. There could be a lot of efficiencies that we gain here, so we're going to begin to pursue that. So when you ask about things that can come out of the water budget, so when we talked about the money in that water budget, well, there's $950,000 that can come out of the water budget on that capital line that brings that number that you were concerned about before, Mr. Mayor, down by almost $1 million.
Todd was concerned about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so that, what we were talking about earlier about the water budget, and because it includes capital projects, I wanted to get to all of this because that's a key part of this. All right, so removing that 950,000 is a big number. The next items, the leak detection permaloggers and the leak detection correlators. The permaloggers are, if you remember several years ago, we bought leak detection equipment. This is a much more permanent type of leak detection equipment where it's put on a water main for a long period of time to detect, and it covers a broader area too, so that it's not just isolated when you think you have a leak and you put a piece of equipment there. This would sit on it and it would listen to the water and the water mains for long periods of time and record whether, to determine whether or not we have leaks in the system. It's just another step in our leak detection process. The leak detection correlators it's the equipment that they use to make a specific determination where the leak is when we know we have a leak and it has to go out and repair it, so that we don't have to dig up 50 feet of road if we only have to dig up 10. So that's what that equipment is for. It's just to literally correlate where the leak is. Water meter reader handhelds. This is to replace the handhelds that we go out, our water readers go out and to read the meters on the ones that are not yet radio meters. Large meter replacement. It's a big one, $250,000. We don't have a lot of large meters. This would be what, you're going to talk about 2-inch or greater?
Yeah,
All right.
2-inch or greater.
So we have like 19,000 customers, and about 18,000 of them are residential customers. And then like 1,000 of them are what we would call, of that, maybe like 800 are the large meter customers, anything with a 2-inch. So if you have water in your house, you probably have a 5/8 meter. So 2 inches is a lot bigger, and then we have all the way up to 8, but we're not going to look to replace the 8s. We only have a couple of them. But this would be to replace the large meters, and this is all about just having more efficient. So when a meter begins to fail, I don't mean when it wears to the benefit of the customer. We want to make them so that they're not worn and they're reading true. So to do that, you need to replace them. So that's what that is. It would be a project to replace the large meters.
Well, how recently were the large meters replaced? Because I thought the meter replacement program, I thought it was only going on for 6.5 years.
Right, but we don't do large meters for that. These are not part of that water meter replacement program like that's budgeted further up for the meters there, the automated meter readers. these are the big, I guess I want to use the word commercial, industrial. These are the big meters that were not part of that radio read water meter replacement project. We haven't replaced these meters.
Since they were put in.
Yeah.
No. I thought we were starting the whole replacement with the biggest meters because that's where we would make the most difference.
Some of the larger meters got clocks replaced, which is not replacing the whole guts of, it's just replacing the guts, not the physical whole meter. So it's reading, there is an error, so, you know, it's time to physically replace those meters rather than just the clocks is what they had done initially when they started the program.
Okay. Next, Society Hill Pump Station upgrade. So the Society Hill Pump Station is one that's offline and doesn't get used, and it was really never intended to be used unless there was an emergency. Over the years, unfortunately, it fell into disrepair just by age and lack of use. We have an interconnect with North Brunswick that provides basically the same water supply that this pump station would supply, but we should repair the equipment that's there. I think that, you know, after having discussions, I don't know that this needs to be done this year, but it does need to be done. So if there's things that you're looking to move back a year on the capital plan, certainly that and the next one at the landing lane pump station upgrades can be put off for another year. And if we put it off for another year, I would say that in all likelihood, we should do the landing lane pump station before the Society Hill pump station, just because the landing lane pump station is online, where the Society Hill one is offline. But we'll see what next year brings. But I'm saying that I feel that you can put that off for a year on those pump station upgrades. The color plan plotter is to print out all of the as-built and plans for the water utility as we begin to digitize things and we begin to work on mapping our system. This piece of equipment is necessary at the Public Works garage. And the last thing, well, next to last thing, the safety impact trailer. I know it's far down on the list, but the truth is it's probably one of the most important things on this list, and I don't think that this one is one that we can say no to. Whenever our Public Works, and in particular our water utility workers, are out on a water main break on the road, they're left unprotected from the traffic other than by some traffic cones. What the trailer-mounted impact, they used to call them trailer-mounted attenuators. That's what they are. It's the big giant cushion pad that you see on a job site where it's on a highway. Some of them are mounted on a truck. They call them truck-mounted attenuators. They fold down, and it's a big giant yellow cushion. You'll see them on interstate highways, often sitting on the side of the road when they're not working. It's actually required on anything over a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit by the federal manual. We do have streets that are over 35 miles per hour. We should be protecting our employees, and I think that it's a necessary safety equipment. And then the last thing is the Berry Street Pump Station backup generator. The Berry Street pump station is not online, I think that certainly we can pass on the generator for this year until we put the pump station online. Then we can go about purchasing a backup generator for it.
Just one comment. And
sure.
If these are in the high-density population areas like the 4th and 5th Ward, we ought to give them priority.
We're not using it.
No, I'm saying if the landing lane and Berry Street.
Well, so this is just about efficiencies, Councilman. It's not about that. So like the landing lane pump station, we want to make it more efficient, but I don't know that it matters whether we make it more efficient. We're not going to lose a tremendous amount of money by putting it off for a year and in efficiencies. The Berry Street pump station is not online, so we don't need to have emergency power to something that's not on. Right.
So the interconnect study for the southern end of town, what's the $100,000 specifically supposed to come up with?
To do an engineering study to determine whether or not it's feasible and to find out what, so we have to do a study. That's I got to have somebody tell me, and I don't know that it's going to cost $100,000. Originally, we had $100,000 budgeted to do an interconnect with South Brunswick. And I said, don't do an interconnect with South Brunswick until we explore the idea of a interconnect with New Jersey American. It might cost more because we might have to lay pipe for a much longer distance than we would to make an interconnect with a main that's across the street from us. But it might, in the long run, be far more beneficial because of the amount of money that we might save on purchasing water from New Jersey American as opposed to South Brunswick, number one, and the volume of water that we're required to purchase every day from New Jersey American and our ability to meet that requirement every day. So the $100,000 is just an estimate right now. I have no idea what it will cost because it's only something that's just recently being discussed. Can't tell you what it's going to cost. I don't know what the
You want to do the study this year, though?
Also,
the benefit to doing it this year is that we're about to go out to bid for the Little Rocky Hill water main. So I want to try to expedite this as soon as possible, so that if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to waste time in getting it done. So you have a system that's a dead end system. Right. If you pump water down a hill to a dead end, you run all of the problems that exist. Some of these things that we're going to fix when we do the repairs on the Little Rocky Hill water main, those problems don't go away simply because it's just a dead end line. If you were able to connect to another system and loop everything and be able to draw water from New Jersey American at the southern end as well as pushing it from the northern end, you create a much more efficient system, and I think that we're doing this work now. We shouldn't delay a year looking at an interconnect with New Jersey American if we're doing the work on the water main now. Right. It just doesn't make any sense to me not to do that now. And if they say that it's not possible, then we're going to go back to $950,000 with an increased capacity on a storage tank, because that's the necessity then. So this is a way to try to save money on both ends, on the capital end and the operations end. I mean, the truth is, we buy water from New Jersey American Water at a far less cost than South Brunswick, but we also have mandatory minimums that we have to meet with New Jersey American. Right. And we're not meeting them out every day, which means we're giving them water for free, or we're paying for something we're not getting. This is an opportunity to get more water from New Jersey American if we can do it. And I think that we need to move sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and let's just move forward with it.
Okay.
The study.
Yeah. That's the water. That's the water capital. So the things I said, 950, 450, 250, 125, that's 6, 7, 8 million, 775. Okay. Which has an impact on that other spreadsheet that you saw earlier with the OE budget by that much money as well. No, I'm looking to see if there's any more questions. Okay. Thank you, Carl. Justin, you're up. Huh? What is this? Oh, good Lord. I thought I was done. I'm trying, folks. Vehicles. I'll put my glasses on again. Under capital, vehicles. We've gone through construction. We've gone through police, fire prevention. This one's on me. So fire prevention is requesting a pickup truck and equipment, $53,105. The entire cost of this is offset by the proposed addendum to the shared service agreement funded by Fire District Number 1 to increase our staff and take over the responsibility of operating a piece of apparatus Monday through Friday during the day. So that funding in total for that capital expenses from the Fire District. The fire district is paying for that pickup truck, not us, because it's part of the shared service agreement that council approved on their consent agenda at the last council meeting, and which the fire district is anticipated to approve at their next district meeting. Public Works, Mason dump with plow, $75,000.
To replace a end-of-life 2003 existing one. Been through many snow seasons.
And we deferred it from last year?
I don't know that we deferred any public works vehicles last year of this type. Replacement trucks got done last year. There was, if anything was deferred last year, it would have been an increase. I think public works got all of their replacements last year.
The one from last year is due in this week.
So they did get it, yeah. Pickup truck with plow.
Same thing, 2001 replacement vehicle, end of life.
Trailer for new loader, $30,000.
So we purchased a new loader, traded in our old one last year, and this would get the loader to the site, trailer for it.
I know that sounds silly, but so tell them how they get there now.
They drive about 10 miles an hour down the road, Amwell Road or wherever, to get where they need to be.
So if the job is in Kingston, they drive from the garage to Kingston at 10 miles an hour. So that's needless to say, a trailer would make that far more efficient piece of equipment. Okay. And the last is a street sweeper. I think we've already talked about that earlier in the evening. That's $175,000 to replace an end-of-life street sweeper. Water utility vehicles, a utility body vehicle with plow replacement.
This is a replacement of one of the three that, two others were out of service already, and this is the third, which is on its last legs.
Single axle crew cab with plow.
This is a roughly, it's a single axle vehicle, holds about, I don't know, 5-6 yards of material, and it's a crew cab to get everybody to the site.
And last but not least on the vehicles is a track hoe with trailer. It's $90,000, and I'll talk about this. So, you know, we have backhoes that dig the trench when there's a water main break or to do work like that. The backhoe can go down about 8 feet. When we have to get something, when there's a water main that's deeper than 8-10 feet in the ground, we have to either get a contractor to come out, or we have to go out. If it's something that's planned, maybe we can go out and rent the piece of equipment.
And how much did it cost us?
Yeah, so we had this one on Franklin Boulevard, right by Easton Avenue. It was a deep main, and we had to get an outside contractor to come in. And the one-time deal for them to come in and fix the main and dig the hole with one of these excavating machines was $50,000.
And what would it have cost us had we had?
It would have cost us the overtime of our public works crew, so it would have cost, I don't know, maybe $3,000-4,000.
And this is $90,000.
And this is $90,000.
So
It has the potential in one job to save you about $40,000-50,000. Yeah, it could do that based on the location and then obviously it can be used for other purposes other than just a water main break.
And can we share it with sewer
Oh,
authority?
could the sewer authority benefit from it? Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, am I done? I'm done. Okay. Public Works and Water are done. What?
No, in his reference to the sewage authority, I'm not going to speak that if we need one or not, but it'd be available, I guess, if we absolutely needed one.
I'm going to tell you, when you have to go work on that sewer main on Mosier Road,
Carl, before you go.
you'll need it.
$185,000 single axle, is that replacing an existing? I didn't hear you say replacing existing. $185,000 for the one crew cab.
That would replace an existing one in water, yes.
And how old is the existing one? What are the issues with it?
Well, it's not four-wheel drive for plowing, but it's, I want to say it's a 2003 or 4.
And you're replacing with a four-wheel drive then? Four
Yes.
plow?
Yeah, all new vehicles we replace with four-wheel drive.
So you pick up, essentially you pick up a plow then in this case?
Oh, actually, we
Plow
plow
would
with
be-
two-wheel drive too, but that
Yeah, but-
becomes a little hairy, and that's one of the reasons why we try not to do that anymore. But we still have two-wheel drive rack bodies out there.
My ride-along with a two-wheel plow.
That would be the vehicle,
was-
yes, yeah.
That's the one that's going.
Yeah, we got stuck a couple of times, so.
And obviously, because these are multi-purpose vehicles, we try to make it so that it serves more than one purpose. It's not just about getting the stuff to the job site, but it's also about plowing and all the other things too. So, okay. All right, this one goes pretty quick. We've already done police, so IT. Yeah, start with capital.
All right, IT capital is pretty easy. The police you already heard from. The open space folks you already heard from. So we have one line item this year, $50,000 for our annual replacement and funding of new equipment as needed.
Okay, so that's it.
Okay.
$50,000 for annual replacement of equipment. Then we have to just go to the tab for the OE budget. Yeah, we'll talk about. Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. Personnel. First thing is personnel. Where's the tab? Help me out here. I got it. Okay. So, first to talk about is a request for personnel. So, Justin.
So we have currently have a vacant position in IT for our part-time help desk position. And remember, this was added approximately 4 years ago. Back then, I had requested a full-timer, and we settled for a part-timer. It's been vacant for over 9 months. We've had 3 applicants. One was qualified. They turned us down. So we're having trouble hiring for it. We've also seen about a 50% increase since 2014 when we added that position in help desk tickets. We need the hours. The bottom line is we need the hours. So we're requesting an upgrade of the part-time position to a full-time position at about a $21,000 impact to the municipal budget.
Any questions on that? Okay. And then the last would be just the OE budget for IT. The OE budget is.
Excuse me 1 second.
Sure.
I think we need to mention that some of this stuff is allocated to our water instead of that position just coming straight out and costing us the $40,000.
So the total impact to the municipal budget is 21,000. That's correct. I've already taken that off the table. So the total impact to upgrade that position to the municipal budget is 21,000.
Okay. IT OE budget last year at 177,420. This year at 186,600 for an increase of $9,180. There's some decreases in lines of the budget. There's a $21,000 increase in maintenance of other equipment, but a decrease of $6,000 in professional consulting and specialized services, and $4,220 in other contractual items, and a $1,600 decrease in software licensing. Justin, why the increase of $21,000 in maintenance of other equipment?
So there's 2 things. The $6,000 that you see decreased in 028 was moved to 026, so that's a wash. The rest of the increase is new equipment that we now have to maintain, and it's also we do multi-year maintenance contracts on things when we save money on them. So I only do multi-year if we save money. So some of those multi-years are coming due now. So you see peaks and valleys in that line quite a bit because it's not a annual line. It's a every 3-year line for some years, every 2-year line for some years, and that saves us money over the long run.
Any questions on the OE budget? Okay. Thank you, Justin.
No problem.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Any general questions for the manager? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Be well, Franklin.